Arrow, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. Arrow, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. Arrow, dumpster fire. Arrow, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, David Grush. Dumpster fire. Arrow, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, David Grush.
For the masses. Yeah.
Gary Nolan. Arrow, Gary Nolan. Arrow found no evidence of extraterrestrial technology, the lack of any evidence. Arrow found no evidence of extraterrestrial technology, the lack of any evidence. Trust me, bro. Don't worry about the evidence. David Grush. Trust me, bro. Don't worry about the evidence. David Grush. With zero evidence.
No credible evidence thus far.
With zero evidence.
No credible evidence thus far.
Kirkpatrick's evidence. Where is Arrow's evidence? Kirkpatrick's evidence. Where is Arrow's evidence?
If I call your mother a hooker. If I call your mother a hooker. If I call your mother a hooker. Mother a hooker. If I call your mother a hooker. If I call your mother a hooker. If I call your mother a hooker. Mother a hooker.
Aliens and extraterrestrials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro.
If I call your mother a hooker. Mother a hooker.
Aliens and extraterrestrials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Arrow. Aliens and extraterrestrials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro.
If I call your mother a hooker. Mother a hooker.
Aliens and extraterrestrials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Arrow. Aliens and extraterrestrials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Arrow.
If I call your mother a hooker. Mother a hooker.
Arrow.
Hooker. 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 Hooker.
Arrow.
Truthseekers, seeking the truth. A truth so bold it's hard to hold. Truthseekers, truthseekers, yeah. Place the cash, place the cash.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. I apologize for the hiccup. Apparently, my microphone went out right before we went to broadcast tonight, but I believe it is working now. Let me know in the live chat. If you can hear me okay, it appears to be working now. One of those strange things. So welcome, one and all. Tonight, I didn't call it the Wackadoo of the week, but I have a feeling we might have identified our Wackadoo of the week. For those unaware, Danny Sheehan is an interesting character with a background in constitutional law, but he has been at the intersection of some incredible historical cases involving government transparency and constitutional law. But outside of that, Danny Sheehan is a true believing UFO alien guy. And there is supportive and ample evidence of that, given his once close association with the Church of Scientology, who he sort of cut ties with to become a Jesuit Catholic priest. Now, in full disclosure, I was raised Catholic and educated by Jesuit priests, brothers, and nuns. And we're going to do an entire show just about the Jesuits, because it's interesting that he has such a close association with the Jesuits. To me, it's a little troubling knowing what I know about Catholic theology and the belief system and the real purpose of the Jesuits. But that's sort of a conspiracy for another time. Interesting that we have Mr. Daniel Sheehan, who was at one time a Scientologist, I believe, or at least he worked for the Church of Scientology, later decided to become a Catholic priest, but then just became a lawyer. But he has always been closely associated with the Catholic Church as well. And again, that's sort of beyond the scope of our presentation tonight. Recently, Mr. Sheehan formed his own sort of religious UFO and alien advocacy group. And he is actively soliciting for donations. And he's got quite the pitch video. And this pitch video itself raises some rather troubling questions for me. Like, why is a Catholic church hosting Daniel Sheehan's UFO and aliens organization? Or it's a bit unclear, but he sort of uses a Catholic church in the pitch video begging for money. And isn't it interesting that so many of these UFO and disclosure and alien advocates all have organizations that need money? That's one thing you're going to find, right? Whether it's Ryan Graves' organization, Stephen Bassett's organization, Stephen Greer's organization. There's many popping up. And Daniel Sheehan's is one of the newer ones, so we're going to cite fair use. This is from his public Twitter page. He's one of the few of the Invisible College of Wackadoos that has not blocked me yet. But don't worry, that'll probably change after our coverage this evening. Welcome, one and all. Let's get into it. So I find this very interesting. First of all, there's typos in this, which if you're going to ask people for money for your nonprofit organization, like, proofread it. But, what do I know? I didn't go to Harvard, but I know how to spell. And that's a problem for me. Like, I'm sorry to even mention this, but this is a problem for me. If you're a Harvard educated lawyer and you're tweeting things that are not spelled right, I mean, I guess accidents happen, but come on, man. And by the way, that's a big organization with an awful lot of people. Maybe you should hire a proofreader before he tweets out begging for money with typos in it. A message from Daniel Sheehan, President and Chief Counsel of the Romero Institute and the New Paradigm Institute. We are not funded by interest groups or corporations. We are powered by people like you who care about truth and transparency. We have set ambitious goals, but we can't achieve them without your immediate support. Now, remember, it's on the thumbnail tonight. There was a big controversy because he once claimed that if you gave his organization $1,000, then you would get access to secret insider information. He had to walk that back because apparently there is no secret insider information to be had. In other words, they overpromised when they were begging people for donations for this organization. Promising people insider information if they give you $1,000 is a little problematic for me. I consider that that's a problem. But what do I know? I guess that's how you do it. Remember, we have talked about this many times. All of these UFO and alien people, they have to overpromise and underdeliver. They have to overpromise, and inevitably they underdeliver. And then we get to the well of broken promises. And here we say, very donation counts and your contribution today will make a tangible difference. I'm sure they meant every donation, but it is what it is. Together we can create the future. So we're going to cite fair use and listen to Danny Sheehan with his wonderful hair. And I just want to put this out there. Is it a goddamn like prerequisite to be one of these alien guys? You got to have wacky hair. You know, that Sukalos guy on Ancient Aliens, his hair gets crazier and crazier with every year. Look at this guy. And I can think of 10 more guys with wacky hair, right? But I guess that's part of being an alien UFO wackadoo. You don't have time for personal grooming. You're trying to get disclosure.
Hi, my name is Danny Sheehan. I'm coming to you from the front yard of the Holy Cross Church here in Santa Cruz, California.
By the way, I left several messages with this church inquiring what is their affiliation with Mr. Daniel Sheehan's UFO and alien organization, and asked if they were aware of some of his many wackadoo claims. And as of the time of this broadcast, I could check my phone, but as of the time right before, oh no, here I have it. We still have not gotten, let me just make sure. No, we still have not gotten any, we have not gotten any reply back from this church. I was curious, like, why is the church hosting his UFO and alien organization? It seemed a little odd to me.
The home of the Romero Institute. We are the sponsor for the New Paradigm Institute.
So he's already got one institute that's a nonprofit and collecting donations. And then they spawn off this New Paradigm Institute. Just, I suppose, Romero does something else, and the New Paradigm Institute is for the aliens and UFOs. And of course, he needs money.
That is engaged in attempting to lift the secrecy around the UFO issue. This has huge theological and philosophical and geopolitical repercussions.
Yeah, if you actually had evidence of anything. And I love how they keep things so vague, like donate to my organization, and we're gonna increase transparency around these issues. That's a pretty vague like mission statement. What does that even mean? Increase transparency. And yeah.
For our country and for the world, we need your help. Please send your contributions to the newparadigminstitute.org. Thank you.
Please send your donations. We need your money. And is it any surprise that somebody is making wackadoo claims and then they need your money? You know, it's pretty common around here. But I wanted to take a moment also to recognize that Mr. Sheehan is directly involved with many wackadoo things. Besides Scientology, he's also been the lawyer for the so-called Disclosure Project, which, run by Dr. Stephen Greer, I believe is, well, I'm not even going to get into Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project. If you've watched the show here, you know what I think of that. So lots of wackadoo claims. And then there's also, I was sent this shortly before broadcast time. He is also on the board of something called the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. There he is right here. And look at this great bunch of advocates. We have Robert Salas, who was abducted by aliens and told the false story of UFOs and aliens shutting down nuclear weapons. Didn't happen. It was a power failure. Oh, also involved in this organization is Nick Pope, the fake British UFO program director that never ran a British UFO program, despite working UFO conventions for decades now, claiming to. And some of these other people I'm not very familiar with. And then we have Paul Hynek, who I think is related to, Alan Hynek. Way to cash in on your dad, bro. Good job. So these are all like Hollywood people and UFO wackadoos. Then we've got Stephen Bassett also involved in this organization. Great. And this, of course, is called the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And they want to bring disclosure of aliens and UFOs through big Hollywood deals that they can all make money on. And you can also donate here. Yet another UAP, UFO, alien-related organization that needs your money. It apparently, it never ends. Also, Mr. Sheehan was the lawyer for Lou Elizondo. But apparently he's I'm a little unclear. Either he's no longer Lou Elizondo's lawyer because Stephen Greer didn't like that. Remember, there's this sort of infighting going on with these disclosure dork fake UFO celebrities, and Lou Elizondo and Stephen Greer don't get along. So I guess he couldn't be lawyers to both of them. But Mr. Sheehan has made completely and totally false statements, provably false statements in recent months, including a release date of Lou Elizondo's book that never came to pass, claiming 40 witnesses are coming forward. Now he's starting to walk all of that back and make excuses for why the things he says never actually happen or, bear fruit. But this is the hallmark of a UFO wackadoo: overpromise, underdeliver, and inevitably you leave a trail of broken promises. We've seen this time and time again. So recently, Mr. Sheehan was on a show called Unraveling the UFO Issue with a show host that has the most disgusting, despicable, gross mustache I'd ever seen. It looks like something out of a bad 1920s Western movie, like you twirl the mustache. Oh, yeah, see? Tell me about the aliens, bro. Yeah. The guy looks like straight out of CIA Central Casting to me. Like, why? I don't even want to get into it. But in any case, we have mirrored that video. Now, in the first 48 minutes, Mr. Sheehan gives everybody his thoughts on we've covered this in the past. He gives everybody his thoughts on the Arrow report. And of course, he's on Team Cover Up because they found no evidence of alien or extraterrestrial visitation or any evidence of aliens. So he's completely against that. We could skip that. We knew he would be on Team Cover Up, right? Then he talks for quite some time about essentially calling Sean Kirkpatrick a liar because he went to Arrow and testified and told them about a picture he saw of an alien crash retrieval program. Where's the picture? Oh, I don't have the picture. I was just shown the picture. So this is another secondhand hearsay story that he claims is firsthand evidence. And I got to tell you, the fact that a Harvard-educated lawyer doesn't know the difference between a secondhand witness and a firsthand witness, he claims he's a firsthand witness to proof of alien crash retrieval programs because he saw a picture. And there's this whole convoluted story that there was some kind of writing and he transcribed the writing, but now he can't find that. And it becomes quite comical because Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's major argument is people come into my office, they tell me stories, they have no evidence, they're not firsthand witnesses to anything. Sheehan's arguing, Kirkpatrick's a liar. I told him I saw a picture of the alien spaceship. Could you produce the alien spaceship for us, sir? Well, no, I didn't get to keep the picture. I don't have a copy of the picture, but I saw it. Great, so you're telling a secondhand story. And Charlie Weiser, great skeptic on Twitter, shout out to Charlie Weiser, ripped apart this story because he told this story ages ago. And he told the story completely and totally differently. And the hallmark of a UFO wackadoo is constantly changing stories. They can't keep their story straight, so the story changes. The story he's telling now about this so-called picture and alien writing and all this stuff is completely different from the time he told this story 10 years ago or more. And of course, he was a member of this original 2001 disclosure initiative as a lawyer for the project. And during some of his live interviews now, he cites complete and total wackadoos like Clifford Stone from the Disclosure Project. And he's also repeating stupid stories that were part of the original 2001 disclosure narrative, but adding little bits, and the stories change because that's all we get. Anecdotes and stories, and the stories keep evolving and changing and getting more grandiose, right? And he tells the story of this person who worked at S4. One of the other ways you know a story is bullshit is when somebody tacks their story onto a previous story that had equally zero evidence and was never proven to be true. But hey, let's take that S4 thing from Bob Lazar, and I'll claim I worked there too, and I saw an alien while I was there. Again, just a story, no evidence. That story has been told for decades. Nobody ever proved it was true, or even vetted the person that was telling the story. But now in the interview, he claims he contacted the family of that person who gave him a deathbed confession about seeing an alien at S4 Area 51, and now I can release his name. Well, great. Then where the hell is his investigation into that person's claims? Did you vet his military claims, his background? Did you verify he actually worked at Area 51? Of course not. We don't get any of that because Danny Sheehan just believes whatever shit people tell him. In other words, he's going full wackadoo. You know, the fact that a Harvard-educated lawyer doesn't require any evidence to believe claims, and he makes some shocking statements in this video like, well, I don't press people for evidence. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically says, well, I don't really press people. They want to give me information. I just go there and I get the information. In other words, he just lets people tell him stories. He doesn't investigate anything. He doesn't demand evidence of extraordinary claims being made. He just takes their word for it and then starts repeating it like a retarded parrot on YouTube. All right. So I also wanted to make sure that we covered one other issue that is very important, because as far as his ability or whatever to investigate things, Danny Sheehan is a proven piss poor investigator of things. Sent to me by Robert Schaefer. He's at Roberto Tenore on Twitter, but it's Robert Schaefer, a great skeptic. Shout out to Robert Schaefer, who sent me this quote about one of the cases. This is one of the cases that Daniel Sheehan was involved in. And it says, quote, the vast majority of the 79 witnesses Mr. Sheehan cited in this case as authorities were either dead, unwilling to testify, fountains of contradictory information, or at best, one person removed from the facts that they were describing. So in other words, he's involved in a lawsuit and he's citing 79 witnesses. And out of those 79 witnesses, a lot of them were dead. He's citing dead witnesses in a legal case or people that would not testify. He was putting words in people's mouths. And in fact, this case of his terrible vetting skills and terrible investigatory ability was so bad that a judge ordered Daniel Sheehan to pay $955,000 in attorney's fees and court fees for bringing a frivolous multi-million-dollar lawsuit against people with fake or majority fake witnesses. So right off the bat, we have to question this man's integrity. We have to question his ability to actually question things, investigate things. If you're bringing $32 million lawsuits against people and your best evidence is dead witnesses or witnesses unwilling to testify, you might be a wackadoo. Just putting that out there. So that, I think, is a very interesting part of this situation. Now, we're also going to get into this interview. And but before we do, before I forget, I know I'm going to forget to do it during the interview, that we're going to do some commentary. Mr. Daniel Sheehan cites Clifford Stone multiple times during this interview. And Clifford Stone was part of the original 2001 disclosure. And he claimed that he worked on a crash retrieval project, but it's been proven that he was a clerk typist for the Army. Again, I'm going to say that one more time. He was a clerk typist, a secretary. He was in the secretarial pool in the Army. He didn't work for any projects, crash retrieval or otherwise. He sat at a desk and typed shit. But he was a lifelong wackadoo who made multiple claims of being part of crash retrieval program, telepathically communicating with aliens, and more. But what you need to know about Clifford Stone is the longer he worked UFO conventions, the more grand his stories got. First, he was part of a UFO crash retrieval program, and they used him to interface or telepathically communicate with the aliens at the crash site. Later, he would be involved in breaking an alien out of a government jail and helping him get back to a flying saucer and get back home. Like he helped E.T. get home. Later, Clifford Stone would talk about his various past lives and his increasing complement of new psychic superpowers that he was getting, including telepathy, telekinesis, moving things with his mind, and much, much more. So what we've got is somebody quoting or using a wackadoo for proof that never provided any proof. This is what these guys do. It's the wackadoo prover maneuver. You just get one guy that's a wackadoo, and he says something, but he has no evidence. You find another guy that backs up the first wackadoo. And also, you can be sure that Clifford Stone is fake. Why? Because he's appearing on Michael Sala's television, or not television show, crappy YouTube show, but whatever. He's on Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Sala, who brought us such incredibly fake people as, I don't know, Corey Good, let's see, William Tompkins, Elena Dannon, and all those fake secret space program insiders. Yeah, and also Clifford Stone. So Clifford Stone is a complete and total wackadoo, and you know that because he's working with Michael Sala. A reputable, real person that worked for the government that had something to share would not do a show with Michael Sala. But wackadoos would. All right. So we're going to get into this interview. And again, he makes some incredible claims, against Dr. Kirkpatrick, but his claims don't bear any fruit. So kind of like that lawsuit for $32 million that he filed against people with dead witnesses and witnesses that wouldn't testify. Yeah, interesting. So we're citing fair use. We are going to go through this interview. We're starting at the 47-minute mark. Now, I am going to be playing. I'm going to be playing from a mirrored copy of the video, just to prevent ads from playing. But the original video in its original form is linked in the description of this video or podcast, should you want it to hear the first 47 minutes of it, which I think you should, but I knew we wouldn't have time to go through all of this. So we're going to begin there at around the 47-minute mark. Let's begin.
Which was to nominate people to the president to be on this board. Another one is to ride shotgun on the Arrow office, as we're doing here in our conversation of, calling them out when they don't perform the duty that they've been assigned. And we're also engaged in act.
He's calling them out by claiming that they lied about not having firsthand witnesses, or claiming that they lied about not being provided evidence. Because Mr. Sheehan seems to think that walking into the Arrow office and going, I saw a picture of aliens, I saw a picture of an alien spaceship, is firsthand witness testimony, or is actual, real, and verifiable evidence. This is the problem with these wackadoos. And I'm sorry, but somebody's got to explain to me how a Harvard-educated lawyer doesn't know the difference between a first-hand testimony and second-hand testimony, doesn't know the difference between real and verifiable evidence and an anecdote, right? I don't get it. I don't understand how somebody this educated could not understand the basic rules of evidence. This is I guess this should be like the first thing they teach in law school. This is first-hand testimony. This is second-hand testimony. This is hearsay, right? I would think, because I'm not a lawyer and I know the difference between those things, but I actually care about standards of evidence. Some people, not so much. All right. And the question here, and look at Mr. Handlebar Mustache. Yeah, see? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, see? Tell me about the aliens, Danny Sheehan. Yeah. Straight out of Central Casting. This is... And they wonder why nobody will take this subject seriously. Look at this interviewer. And I don't want to dwell on the guy's appearance, but Jesus Christ, dude. I will send you some razors myself. Give me your address. I'll send you shaving cream, razors. Shave that ridiculous thing off of your face, bro.
active field investigations.
Okay, so the question was, what are you doing with New Paradigm Institute with the lawyers to support these whistleblowers? Remember, Danny Sheehan said that all these whistleblowers are coming forward. Now he's going to make excuses for why the whistleblowers haven't come forward, all 40 of them. And he's going to refuse to name them too, because we know who they are. They're the same old wackadoos.
Right now. But we also have a legal division. We have 12 lawyers now who are devoted to providing defense for whistleblowers.
Yeah. But you need real whistleblowers that actually have evidence, right? And that's a problem because they don't have any real whistleblowers that actually have evidence. And I know I'm going on a limb saying that. They don't have any real whistleblowers that have evidence. Where are these 40 people with all this evidence Rush promised? Now we're getting the excuses. Do you know why? Because they overpromised and then inevitably they underdelivered. And now we get to the trail of broken promises and apologies for why things that they said were true a year ago are no longer true or have changed now.
And we're also working on additional legislation, ideal legislation that is important, for example, to strengthen the whistleblower protection.
Yeah, that's exactly who I want writing laws. I want Danny Sheehan, who doesn't know the difference between firsthand testimony and secondhand testimony, writing laws for my country. Not a problem at all, right? I would think it's a problem, right? Let's continue.
Which right now are functioning at far less than an ideal level of protecting these guys. We're also working with major law schools to have law review articles prepared dealing with the kind of constitutional and legal implications of the cover-up, etc.
So he's doing all this stuff. You know what would be a lot easier, Danny Sheehan, if you just get the people that are making the claims to show evidence. Wouldn't that be a lot easier than all this roundabout rigmarole way of trying to force disclosure from the evil cabal? Just get these people that claim they have evidence to show evidence. Why don't you show the picture of the alien spacecraft you saw? Oh, because you don't have a picture. You saw one though. Great.
We're engaged in those activities, but the pointed one that you ask about is that we have not only this group of a dozen lawyers that are going to be working to help be available to provide defense for and protection for the whistleblowers, but we have a liaison with probably the top lawyer in the entire country. That is.
Why doesn't he name names? You notice he's not going to name names. Oh, we have 12 lawyers. Name them. Where are they at? Where can we see them, Danny Sheehan? Oh, well, we also have a liaison to the top lawyer in the country. Who I don't know who the top lawyer in the country. Can you tell us the guy's name?
Expert with regard to the steps that need to be taken to properly protect yourself under the whistleblower statutes.
He might be talking about Grush's lawyer, former ICIG.
Right. And he's going to be providing training for all of the lawyers and is available to come in and provide direct legal representation if necessary upon occasion. So we're pretty well geared up now to provide the protections. And so the word is now going out to these people who've already appeared to the Senate Intelligence Committee to prepare them if they're going to go public. Yeah.
So why doesn't he name those people? Why don't we get the names of the 40 whistleblowers? Could it be because Kirkpatrick was correct? And you can tell in the Arrow report who went and testified to Arrow. People like Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff and Travis Taylor and Daniel Sheehan.
Awesome. Yeah, wow, that's big and that's exciting and hopefully.
Yeah, and if you're wondering how you too can be a lazy UFO show host, just say awesome after people say completely and totally unverifiable things and offer no evidence that what they're saying is actually true. Awesome.
More of them are going to go public soon. Do you have any idea when you think the next, one or two names that we're not familiar with yet will be public? Do you know, like how soon you expect that to happen? Is that?
Oh, did you see him turn his head there? That was a nervous tick. Oh shit. now I'm going to have to cover for the fact that most likely, and I admit this is speculation, those 40 witnesses are all known names. This show host just say, oh, what about the ones we don't know yet?
Are going to be in the next month or two, or are we thinking by the end of the year kind of thing?
Well, it depends.
Here comes the excuses. And did you hear the stuttering? Well, it's about shit. He's asked me a question, and I have to answer it about those 40 whistleblowers.
But like, you know, Tim Burchett, for example, we've met with his staff people, and they want to hold a field hearings where they can.
Here he's deflecting the question. He's not answering the question that was asked. He's bringing up something completely and totally unrelated.
Have one of the individuals actually outside of the House or Senate buildings, you know, have a field hearing in Go Public. That we're at the New Paradigm Institute, in whatever legal advice that we are able to give to the whistleblowers. We're proposing that you know, just hold on a bit. Let's get this done officially. Let's have a hearing like the July 20.
So these are excuses. That he was asked directly, when are we going to know the names of these whistleblowers? He gives excuses.
26th hearing of 2020.
He gives excuses and requirements that have to be fulfilled before we're going to know who those whistleblowers are.
23 that was held in the House office buildings, you know, where you have the assembled members. They're all there. Everybody's under oath. The whole thing can be done in an official way, and so that now that this bogus report has come out from Arrow, there's a much higher level of interest in responding fairly quickly to have hearings. So I think that that's going to accelerate the availability of an official public hearing, and that may come on fast enough.
Yeah, we have to get Tim Burchett to do some more things first, and then we'll drip out stuff. In other words,
so that we can not have to have field hearings like that. You know, that we're actually the latest date specific that we were talking about is in people were asking me, do you think we're going to have any of these public hearings happening before May 8th? And I said I wasn't sure yet whether the hearings would take place before May 8th, but we're trying to get them to happen as soon as possible.
Okay, cool. Well,
I say
fingers
them.
Crossed.
I say them, but it will be it. You know, the hearing. You know, we're not just going to have a whole bunch of battling hearings.
Anna Louisa wants to cut his hair.
There's discussion going on between the House and Senate now as to which of the two places is preferable. We've had the House.
Notice these guys always talk about what's going on in the House and the Senate as if they have some insider knowledge of that. Well, go get an on-the-record statement confirming the statements he's making here. You can't, because I really think that these guys just make up stuff. I just heard James Fox talking similar nonsense. Well, you know, we're trying to figure out the best path forward for disclosure. Sure you are.
Who have functioned very, very well. But there may be some desire on the part of the Senate Intelligence Committee to have a hearing over on the Senate side so that we can show that there's not only bipartisan support from both political parties, but that there's support from both houses to get these hearings scheduled.
I'll take any and or all of it. Just give me all the hearings. It sounds great. It's all progress. Just a couple of other quick questions about these whistleblowers before we move on to something else. Do you feel comfortable kind of having either a guess? I don't know if it's probably not a guess. How many of these whistleblowers, these 40, are the public already aware of?
Did you see how big that pause is? He's trying to figure it out. Now, remember, my working theory is that all 40 of these people are all people we already know. Eric Davis, Travis Taylor, Com Kelleher, Jay Stratton, Hal Puthoff, Christopher Mellon, Lou Elizondo. We could get to 40 pretty quick, right? And that's the reason they're not divulging the names of these so-called whistleblowers. Also, a Harvard-educated lawyer knows the definition of a whistleblower. And if you have no evidence, you're not a whistleblower. So there's a huge problem here with this whole situation. And the fact that nobody, not Grush, not Ross Coulthard, not Leslie Kane, not anybody selling this story, Corbell, Knapp, Elizondo, Grush, Sheehan, nobody will divulge the names of the 40 whistleblowers. You know why? Because it's one big bluff. It's all the same group of wackadoos that have been making these claims forever. Now, he's directly asked, how many of these names are people that we don't know already?
Well, they're only aware of a few of these people, and some of them are mistaken to be whistleblowers, like Lou Elizondo.
And listen to this. Now he's basically going to say that neither Lou Elizondo or Dave Grush is an actual or real whistleblower. So even he has to acknowledge the misuse of the term whistleblower. So every time you hear some idiot or you see it in a video title or a podcast title, whistleblower David Grush, even Danny Sheehan admits that David Grush is not a whistleblower.
And Chris Mellon and Dave Grush, they're not whistleblowers because they've been given consent by DAPSA, to make the public statements that they've made. So technically they're not. We said that to the Inspector General of the Defense Department when we filed Lou's complaint with them about the retaliatory steps that were being taken against him. That we pointed out that that he's not really a whistleblower because he had authority to say the stuff, and he wasn't any longer employed at the Defense Department, and they hadn't taken any steps inside the Defense Department to deprive him of a promotion or any. That's one of the problems with the present whistleblower legislation. Is really quite narrow.
No, it's really quite broad. There are whistleblower protections in place. So who needs Danny Sheehan, and why should he be collecting money to provide whistleblowers with whistleblower protection when there's already laws in place to do that?
And therefore, some of the people that have firsthand knowledge about this wouldn't be technically covered by it, because at the present time, for example.
Now he's saying some of the people that have firsthand knowledge, after he mentioned Mellon, Elizondo, and Grush, as if to imply that Mellon, Elizondo, and Grush have firsthand knowledge. Then drop it, you bunch of bluffing fools. Drop the evidence. Drop the whole, I know some things. We all know some things, but we can't tell you yet. Dance. Show the evidence. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm getting to the point of put the evidence on the table in front of you, or shut the fuck up already and stop collecting money, making false claims or grandiose claims that you'll never prove.
They've not been retaliated against because people inside the Defense Department don't even know they've come forward and provided the information to the Senate Intelligence Committee. So that technically they don't.
That's another thing. People are bluffing. Oh, they provided evidence to the Senate Intelligence Committee. Get me an on-the-record statement from the Senate Intelligence Committee members saying that they got evidence of aliens and UFOs from these people that Sheehan, Grush, Elizondo, and everybody else is describing. You can't. So this is just, trust me, bro. They gave their evidence to the Senate Intelligence Committee. Really? Wouldn't Arrow have access to that evidence then how could they reach their conclusion that there's no evidence if evidence was given to members of the Senate Intelligence Committee? It's one big circle jerk bluff. This is all one big circle jerk bluff. They got nothing.
Qualified. So you have to try to figure out how to protect a prospective whistleblower before they're actually protected under the statute. Yeah. So that's what we're in the process of working out right now.
That's why you're assembling the A team of lawyers. Yeah,
that's right.
Great job not actually answering the question. Great deflection.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so you think you said we only know probably a few. So what is that, like less than 5 single digits? Is like a couple?
Well, actually, the public doesn't know any of them. Yeah, because as I said, Lou and
but Chris, isn't Eric Davis? I think is one of them, isn't he?
Pardon?
I think Eric Davis is one of the 40, isn't he?
Well, yes, but people know about it. People do know about him already.
Yeah, and what does he mean the public doesn't know about them? Because if you stop 25 people on the street and ask them who Lou Elizondo is or Dave Grush, they will probably say no. So I don't know about this question, especially considering he's a lawyer, right? They know how to answer questions a certain way.
I mean, he's already part of the New York Times. He's talked to the New York Times about the information he's provided to the Senate Intelligence Committee, saying that these are not of this earth.
Yeah, why doesn't he release that information publicly? Why does it got to go through these channels? It's like, well, I had all this evidence of aliens and I gave it to the Senate Intelligence Committee. Can't divulge it publicly, but I gave all that evidence to the Senate. They always claim that they have all this evidence that they gave to somebody. Why don't you just release it? Just release it then, right? If you have evidence, oh no, can't do that. And then you get the excuses and the circle jerk, right?
Scrapped.
Yeah. But you don't think there's many others that we're not aware of yet. So people like Hal Puthoff, Colm Kelleher, you said Christopher Mellon. No, I had Patrick from Vetted wanted to ask about Lou Elizondo, but you said Lou Elizondo is not one of the 40 whistleblowers of David Grush.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that technically some of them would not be considered whistleblowers, given the extraordinarily narrow cover.
Yes, but if they're on that list of 40, and many of them are, and many of them testified to Arrow, that means that all these UFO clowns bluffed having 40 whistleblowers. And now Sheehan is trying to figure a way to weasel out of that 40 claim, right? Because remember, in order for these guys not to be proven liars, we got to see 40 firsthand whistleblowers with evidence. That's a tall order. 40 firsthand witnesses of alien technology on Earth with evidence? Can't wait to see that. Oh, but all we've gotten is excuses for the past year. Remember, those claims were first made on June 5th, 2023. That's when those claims were first made. And that means that we're up to 288 days now that these guys have been bluffing 40 firsthand witnesses, all with evidence. But we haven't seen any of them yet. We haven't heard from any of them yet. Or have we? Have we?
Coverage of the whistleblower statutes right now. But if you use it colloquially, then clearly Lou and Chris and Dave would be considered part of the 40.
Okay. And are you aware of others that we know about? So guys like Hal Puthoff, Colm Kelleher, Jim Sullivan.
I'm not at liberty to discuss that.
Yeah.
In other words, he doesn't want to answer because yes, Hal Puthoff, Colm Kelleher, and Eric Davis, and all these people are the 40 people that Dave Grush claims to have interviewed and gotten firsthand testimony from. And we've already seen that Sheehan doesn't know the difference between firsthand and secondhand testimony. Maybe David Grush doesn't know the difference between firsthand and secondhand testimony as well.
Okay, fair enough. I had to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Jonathan Gray? Is he? Do you know much about Jonathan Gray? Do you know him personally?
I'm not at liberty to discuss any of the individuals.
Okay, you know who I'm referring to, though. The person in the piece, Leslie Kane's article. Yeah,
I do know.
Okay.
How many deflections from answering a question have we seen? And remember, look, Sheehan would be left in a puddle of his own piss if he submitted to a real interview. This twirly mustache guy, tell us about the aliens. See, Danny Sheehan. This is a softball interview, and Danny Sheehan is still deflecting and refusing to answer questions directly. Simple, direct questions. He can't answer them, right? Typical lawyer speak, though.
Okay, you can't say anything about him at all.
No, I'm not at liberty to talk about this.
Got you. Well, hopefully he's
not at liberty
at some point this year.
He's not free to talk about it.
You'd be love to learn a little bit more about him. When we last spoke, you shared the story of meeting a Project Blue Book member who shared you some details while on his deathbed. You said at that point in time you couldn't give me the name. You said you'd have to.
These guys love dead witnesses. You know why? Because nobody can verify that their dead witness actually said that.
Check with his family. I believe you've done that now, and I think you revealed his name in your recent interview with Ross Coulthard. But could you confirm the name and please elaborate a little bit about your relationship?
Yeah, why are we even talking to you if you can't talk about it?
The man's name is Albert Stein. His name is. He's from Osage, Wisconsin.
And by the way, do you know where this story comes from? This story comes from Stephen Greer. Stephen Greer told this story. You know who else told this story? Grant Cameron, I believe, and others have repeated this unproven, unverified, single source story in which no one ever provided paperwork to prove that person making these claims was who they say they were. No one ever provided paperwork to prove he actually worked at Area 51. So this is just another trust me bro story. Everybody gets their disclosure boners. Oh my God, he worked at S4. Oh, my disclosure boner. He worked at Area 51 and he saw an alien while he worked there. Great. Can we verify that he actually worked at Area 51? Well, no, we haven't verified any of this. We just believe him, because it was a deathbed confession, great.
And he called me on his deathbed. Actually, he was in hospice up there in Osage. He called me on the telephone at my office and asked me to come see him right away because he was dying and didn't anticipate living much longer and wanted to share something with me. So I flew there to Minnesota and drove up in
he flew to Minnesota and then drove to Wisconsin,
stayed in a little motel there in Osage and went over to interview him, and he started explaining how he had been deployed officially from the United States Army. He was like a clerk typist specialist, and he was assigned to be kind of an administrator at Project Blue Book in the classified section that dealt only with those some 700 or so sightings that they were completely unable to explain away as swamp gas or a mistaken flock of birds or something.
Yes, and there's long rumored to have been a classified version of the project. And, I'm getting a little confused because I'm not sure which of the people telling similar stories he's talking about. This could be the so-called anonymous Area 51 whistleblower who Corbell and Dolan interviewed and didn't verify any of his claims or credentials, right?
In that he was in the office. It was set up at a separate military base, and it had staff that was assigned or deployed regularly to it to do field follow-up on some of these reports. And he kept all the records there. He would accept their field reports and file them away and all that. And he stayed there, even though there were people who came and went, with like a 1-year tour, but he stayed there for a number of years. And he got to be very close with the fellow who was the commander of the operation.
Yeah, so he's talking about the so-called anonymous Area 51 whistleblower, Cooper Stein, who we completely debunked with the help of Solar Marshall. We went through his claims and they were all historically inaccurate. In other words, he said that he flew into Area 51 on a plane that didn't exist or was not in use at the time. He rode in cars that were wrong for the period, right? He made a lot of completely and totally incredible claims, never proved any of them. And nobody's ever seen the guy's military paperwork. Also claimed that he worked for the CIA. Nobody's ever seen any verification of that. So this is the endless recycling of already debunked garbage, evidence-free stories. That's what we have here.
And he told me in detail about how the commander had been assigned or was going to go to Area 51 to do an inspection there. And he asked Albert to come with him as in the kind of administrative aid. And so he went with him.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't believe that I didn't catch this before. I thought it was a story told by Grant Cameron and Stephen Greer, but it turns out this is the anonymous former CIA agent. Nobody can prove he was a CIA agent. And look, I bought this book to help in the debunking efforts, thanks to all of our friends and supporters. This CIA agent, codename Anonymous, kept his secrets long beyond his death due to threats to his own life and his family. He now reveals All he witnessed as a member of an above top secret task force charged with investigating the truth about UFOs and alien encounters. And the story wasn't true when Corbell and Dolan ran it, and now Sheehan is recycling this. This counts as evidence for some of these people. It is completely and totally piss poor. Nobody researches anything. Nobody actually gets documentation to prove the claimant's claims. They just repeat the story. And Sheehan is telling an entirely different version of the story than Corbell and Richard Dolan told. And an entirely different version from the version in the book that C. Ronald Garner published. So which one of the stories from this guy are we supposed to believe? The story he told Ronald Gardner? The story he told Linda Moulton Howe? By the way, according to Linda Moulton Howe, he was dead already when Corbell and Richard Dolan interviewed him. Was he dead already when Sheehan claims to have interviewed him? Who knows, right? But this is a real problem. So the guy tells multiple different versions of his story. He provides no evidence either of his military service or his CIA work. And Danny Sheehan is just blindly repeating the story because the guy told him this story. But it's important to note that he told Richard Dolan and Corbell a slightly different version of the story, and he told Ronald Gardner a slightly different version of the story.
They went to Area 51, then they went to S4. And they went to S4, and he said that he actually went.
There was no mention of S4 in the Ronald Gardner account, and I don't recall, but I don't think there was mention of S4 in the Richard Dolan Corbell version of this story. And you have to remember that this is a single sourced story with no evidence. Now think about the fact that count them, three now, UFO profiteering whores have just repeated evidence-free claims of a single source that they didn't verify, they did not vet, they didn't check into, but everybody wants some money out of this guy who's now dead. Is he dead for sure now? Because Linda Moulton Howe said he died before Richard Dolan and Corbell interviewed him. Now he died after, apparently.
Down in below ground to the facility at S4, and he actually saw a UFO vehicle there, hovering, just being held in this facility.
How did he describe the craft? Sorry,
he didn't. I didn't press him on it. He just said it was clearly UFO, and it was just hovering, just in this some kind of a warehouse space kind of area. And he said that then they went, and his commander was actually going to be meeting face to face with a live ET.
Wow. Did you get your disclosure boner yet? He's going to meet with a real alien
person, extraterrestrial biological entity, an EB, they called him. And he went with his commander, and he could see the extraterrestrial being, who was like 6 feet tall, wasn't one of these little 3.5 foot guys. It was like a 6 foot tall guy, with the big head and the big almond black eyes, and they had him in a jumpsuit, and he was in this room. They had this two-way glass on it, so he could see. It was like a mirror to them inside the room, but he could see through it, and he didn't want to get near it. He said he thought it was demonic.
And again, with the religious overtones. Oh, it was demonic alien. Ooh, spooky. Makes the story a lot spookier. The alien must have looked like a demon. And again, we've got an evidence-free story by a guy who told multiple evidence-free stories to multiple UFO people.
It turns out that Albert is kind of this fundamentalist Christian, and he thought it was demonic, and he didn't want to go near it. But his commander went in and actually was engaged in a telepathic kind of interview with this being, and Albert stayed outside, and the staff guys that were there that attending to this being told him that they had conducted interviews with him.
Oh, yeah. And how do you interview an alien from another star system? Well, telepathic communication.
over a period of time, and that they had these little 3x5 note cards with information on them about things that the being had talked to them or communicated with them about. And one of them was they asked him where he was from, and he said he was from another star system that was in our Milky Way galaxy.
You got to love that they always provide all these useless details that don't matter. Why don't you provide the guy's CIA records? Why don't you provide the guy's military records? Why don't you provide proof he actually stepped foot on Area 51? Oh, well, we can't do that, so we'll just, fill in the blanks with spooky stories. That's what we get here, spooky stories. No evidence.
And he said that he was part of a unit that had people from different star systems that were in it. And that they were assigned to be going around inside the galaxy, checking up on planets where living life forms had started.
And none of these details were in Linda Moulton Howe's stories about this individual. None of these details were in Richard Dolan's stories about this individual. None of these details were in Corbell's retelling of this guy's, and they were not in the book. I have the book. What he's describing here was not described in the other accounts. If the story keeps changing, depending on who's telling it, chances are it's some grade A bullshit. I just got to shake my head and laugh. Linda Moulton Howe made a lot of money pushing that fake story. Then she hands it off to Corbell and Dolan. They make money pushing this fake story. Now she hands on it. It's an endless recycling of tall tales.
And that was what they did. And they had asked him, apparently, that, like, who was in charge of this? Who was in charge of this project? He said, well, your people is what you people would kind of refer to as God, but it's not like you think. He said, and Albert was so offended by that because he was this fundamentalist Christian. He said, I didn't believe him. And so I've never told anybody about what he said because I didn't want to go spreading a false thing.
Never told anybody. He told Linda Moulton Howe, but he didn't tell him this part. He told Richard Dolan, but he didn't tell him this part. He told Corbell, but he didn't tell him this part. And he told Ronald Gardner, but he didn't tell him this part. And the guy's dead, so we can't call the actual individual and try to get some clarity on the multiple stories he told multiple different people and why the stories don't line up or match very well. Isn't that interesting? These guys love dead sources, right? Because you can't refute a dead source. I can't prove that the dead guy didn't tell Sheehan this, but he can't prove that he did.
Like that. But he wanted to confide in me. And I think it was because he knew that I'd been at Jesuit headquarters. It was almost kind of this like priestly confession that he was engaged in here with me. So I spent like 2 whole days with him there. So I had all that direct information as well.
Wow. Yeah.
He had direct information. He had secondhand anecdotes from a alleged firsthand witness who can't prove he ever worked at Area 51, who never even proved his military service or credentials that he claimed. And remember, we did a complete debunk on that blew his story to shit, at least the version that he told Dolan and Corbell, because there was a great deal of historical inaccuracies that proved that he wasn't being honest.
I'm not going to ask you too much more about the interview now because we talked about that in some length last time we spoke. But to kind of ask you a couple of other questions, how many people from his family are you in touch with, and are you aware what they think about his claims and his links to Blue Book and all of that?
No, I didn't press them on that. I
didn't bother to ask his surviving family members if he was actually in the military or the CIA that they were aware of. I didn't press him. In other words, Sheehan asked no hard questions. He demanded no evidence. He just listened to a guy tell him stories and blindly repeated them with no evidence whatsoever.
I don't know exactly what they think about it or not. I just found out.
Did they surrender any information to you, like oh, he used to talk about this, or
no,
you might be interested?
I didn't press them. I was just trying to get permission to say who he was.
Yeah, no, I was just checking if they kind of threw anything at you, like to get it off their chest or anything like that while they were.
No, none of that.
Yeah, I just wondered if you actually asked any questions to verify his story. Oh, that's right, you didn't. Great.
No.
Fair enough.
Great.
Okay. And how long had you known him? Just one other quick question. How long had you known him?
Fake Lou Elizondo is here. Welcome, Fake Lou Elizondo.
No, wow. he somehow knew about me.
Did he tell you how he knew about you and how he decided he wanted you to come and sit with him?
No, he didn't.
Yeah. I bet you've wondered about that a few times.
No, I don't. I don't waste an awful lot of time speculating. You know, I've interviewed many witnesses over 50 years. You know, so I don't press them on their kind of psychology or anything. I'm just trying to
listen to this. So he interviews witnesses, but he never presses them. In other words, he doesn't ask for evidence.
Especially if they want to give me some specific information. I just want to get the information from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. And I'm guessing Albert back then, he didn't mention anything about Bob Lazar or anything like that. That was after Bob Lazar had gone public, I think.
No, he didn't mention anything about him.
It was after Bob Lazar had gone public.
Apparently he can't answer.
Oh, yes.
Not directly.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Do you think from what he told you, did it all align with the stuff that we've heard from Bob Lazar?
Yeah, no, it was completely consistent with.
Oh, and there it is, friends, the wackadoo prover maneuver. Oh, one wackadoo with absolutely no evidence who cannot verify any of his claims whatsoever. That wackadoo must be telling the truth, because another wackadoo in the form of Bob Lazar told a similar story and had equally no evidence. That is a textbook example of the wackadoo prover maneuver. And Sheehan is co-signing Bob Lazar's claims. Remember, Bob Lazar is a convicted pimp fake scientist who never proved a single of his claims. We can prove definitively that he never stepped foot on Area 51, that he was a fake imposter scientist. He was never a real scientist. He had massive financial problems and debt at the time he came out with his story. He was bankrupt. He could never have gotten clearance to work anywhere near a secret project because his wife was a convicted murderer with strong ties to organized crime. And Sheehan's an intelligent man. He knows what it takes to get a clearance. At the height of the Cold War, you're not getting a clearance to work at Area 51 with a convicted murderer wife who hangs out with the Hells Angels motorcycle club while you're having massive financial problems. But, you know, don't let things like facts and evidence get in the way of a good story, especially if you can put two wackadoos together to somehow prove your arguments are real, even though both wackadoos have zero evidence.
The things that Lazar had said before.
Yeah.
But it had a lot more detail and a lot of additional stuff that, you know, it wasn't him just regurgitating what Lazar said. He was being very specific about it being his own personal experience.
No, I can't imagine anybody would want to regurgitate something like that on their deathbed, especially, right? Like that's
that's
the time of your life where it's
he was heading out. He was heading out. Yep.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, when we combine comments from like sentiments from Tom DeLonge about this phenomenon.
By the way, this Cooper Stein story was never described as a deathbed confession in my experience until now. You know, like, you got to add layers of drama. The story keeps changing, getting more grandiose. Additional parts to the story that were never there before are getting tacked on. And again, you're talking about a dead source, so nobody can verify the claims.
Elizondo's somber comment. Everybody's talked about the idea that President Jimmy Carter allegedly cried after he was told, you know, the truth about the phenomenon. And there's loads of little things, you know, along the
that claim that President Carter cried after he was told the reality of the ET situation is a long debunked, again, single source story that I think was even refuted by Jimmy Carter. But again, you can't let things like facts and evidence get in the way of good bullshit stories. I'm just blown away that these guys are so uneducated or unwilling to actually accept evidence of things being fake that they just repeat it ad nauseum.
These lines, people's reactions and people's short kind of summaries of the phenomenon. But should we be afraid? Is there something here to be afraid of? Like, what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, a lot of different people are afraid of different things. You know, so I mean, you know,
now we're getting to the wackadoo.
To people who are afraid to find out that, you know, that we somehow the Vietnam War wasn't justified. it shattered their whole confidence in the United States military. The people are afraid of all kinds of things, so that doesn't count. The question,
good point, Mike.
whether
Thanks for being a
I
member.
believe that there's anything that we have a legitimate reason to be afraid about, I wouldn't use the term afraid. I would say that we need to be cautious, and we need to be circumspect about what we're doing here.
Can't tell which guy is Dr. Evil.
What our covert operations people know about this. I think getting the Congress told, getting the Senate Intelligence Committee told, and the House Intelligence Committee told. I don't
You're
think
probably right, William Runner. Thanks for being a member,
about that. We need to take enough steps to make sure that any of the people who get the information
Thomas Robinson
aren't going to go rushing right out and just tell everybody, because then it's not under any kind of adequate, responsible control. And the whole point of the 64-page bill that was passed by the Senate was to establish a reasonable and sound and responsible set of protocols for getting the information conveyed to the Senate.
So here he is just providing excuses for why we can't hear from these so-called firsthand witnesses. That's what we get now. A year ago, or 288 days ago, on June 5th, 2023, Grush promised 40 firsthand witnesses with evidence. Where are they at? Come on, 288 days now, you guys can't produce one of them?
Intelligence Committee and House Intelligence Committee.
All we get is excuses.
And letting them start exercising responsibility over this group of this panel.
I agree, the hydrogen line, you're correct.
That was going to be making preliminary decisions about how much should be revealed.
I know, Lord.
Now, ultimately, the president was going to have to sign off on any of this information that's going to be revealed, because he, or later she, whoever this is,
the most boring
but the
outlaw
plan
gang
was,
ever.
In this instance,
Yeah,
if the bill
tell
had
us
been
about the
passed
aliens.
as written by the Senate, that would have become operational on October 18th.
Could be,
of 2024. That virtually all of the information that we'd acquired before the year 1998, 25 years earlier, were going to be presumptively revealed. Now that was going to be a huge dump, because a lot of information has been obtained prior to 1998, right?
Yeah.
And so that they
You're
were
right,
not
Patty. Promises.
thinking there's anything in there that was going to cause anybody to have to be afraid. Okay.
It does look like he's
but
part
again,
of it, too.
we haven't seen it. And so that when you say be afraid, for example, some people are going to be afraid if they, for the first time in their life, discover that a number of people have been abducted. But most everybody's heard about that. So I mean, if they're going to be afraid about that, they're already afraid about that. So just telling them anew about that isn't going to frighten them. But a lot of people, consider all that stuff just science fiction. So they're not.
We're getting to the wackadoo stuff. Yes, and by the way, there is zero verifiable proof or evidence of alien abductions. There's a lot of stories and people claim experiences, but there is zero verifiable evidence, despite perhaps hundreds of books about that subject being written and sold and marketed, despite hundreds of thousands of dollars of documentaries about that subject.
Not any more afraid of that than they are about, whoever that guy is on every Halloween is supposed to come and attack them in a hockey mask. But the bottom line is that there are reasons to be cautious here. Now, Marshall Summers has done. There's a fellow that has written an awful lot of books about this called Allies of Humanity. And he is a person out in Boulder, Colorado, that writes about how we ought to be circumspect about what the agenda is of these other civilizations, because there are a number of species that we've talked about. There's at least 5
dedicated Wookiee spankers. Thanks for being a member for 2 months, High Speed Chase.
Extraterrestrial or conceivably extra dimensional beings that we're talking about here.
No, now we're getting into extra dimensional beings.
It may be that some of them are less of a problem than others, or some of them are more of a problem than others. But the bottom line is you get varying stories about this, but that they're abducting human beings in subjecting them to involuntary physical examinations, and especially the taking of female egg cells.
And you notice the nonchalance in which he just says things as a fact with no supportive evidence, that it's like, here's a fact, but the facts are not in evidence to support that that's a fact. It's a story. But he just said, the fact is they are taking people against their will. So far, he's completely co-signed for the Cooper Stein fake story, the Bob Lazar fake story. He certainly co-signed for a bunch of Stephen Greer's fake stories in the past. Now he's co-signing alien abductions as fact. He said, the fact is, no, there's no facts to support that, Daniel Sheehan.
Human egg cells or male sperm. That's something.
God damn it, they're stealing our sperm. They're stealing our.
You don't want to be
bitches' eggs.
That kind of.
We got to stop this alien invasion.
In that sense, there are some things that people would be legitimately concerned about here, and that what we want to do at the New Paradigm Institute is try to develop some set of protocols pursuant to which we can
yes, I think
engage with the extraterrestrial beings and try to, if it hasn't been done yet, explain to them in more effective terms.
I agree, Talman.
Why they should not do that.
They're stealing our sperm.
There needs to be some sort of a program set up where they could, if they want to have a female egg cells, there are people that might be willing to donate them voluntarily.
So now he's suggesting that instead of the aliens abducting people and stealing the eggs and the sperm, we just give it to them. Find people that want to give it to them. And do you get a handy if you donate your sperm cells to aliens? Like, how do they extract it? Right? Do they give you a handy? And what's an alien handy like? Like me, I was never a real big fan of hand jobs. I don't know about the rest of you. Like most women, they don't know how to work a penis. Like I could jerk myself off better than most women could do it, right? So, but what about an alien? Maybe they got like tentacles and they wrap their tentacles around your cock and they just like, right? And do they lube it, or do they just go in roughshod and they just jerk you off like dry? Because that's kind of gross. At least spit on it, right? And then jerk it off. What the hell is Danny Sheehan talking about? They're stealing our sperm. But we should just give them our sperm, and maybe people will just give them the eggs voluntarily, and then they won't have to abduct humans. He's saying all this as if all of this is reality. He's gone full wackadoo.
The same thing with the sperm, etc. If they want to do that, but there probably needs to be some sort of an official program that supervises that. What are we doing here?
Talman says, my sperm, and I want it now.
We have to find out why they're doing that, and whether we want to cooperate with that voluntarily. So there's as long as the national security state people are just flat out lying,
exactly,
and saying that none of this is true, none of this is happening, two things happen. Number one, we don't have the opportunity to actually devote the kind of resources to it that are necessary to figure out how to supervise
them hot blood Nordic chicks. Like that, I would take a handy. I would take a handy from one of them.
But on the other hand,
I want more.
It makes the situation rife for complete speculation. And so that you get all kinds of crazy assertions being made.
Yeah, there'd be lines.
And they haven't been properly evaluated.
Yeah, that's so funny. Talman says, could you imagine the lines that would form if aliens could simply ask for sperm? And imagine this, like, what if there was like a line you could Talman, like, what if they announced that, right? That was disclosure. Listen, the aliens are here. We're sorry we lied, but they need your sperm. So we're going to have events in all major cities where you could get lined up and you get your handy from right? And there'd be a line to get a handy from an alien to get those sperm cells and donate them, right? Great. I could imagine, dude, I know some really freaky people that would be into that. What? An alien's going to jerk me off and take my sperm cells? Sign me up!
And so
it's so ridiculous. What he's talking about is so ridiculous.
Complete fiction in, like, for example, with Travis Walton, and Fire from the Sky, the motion picture, completely fabricated information. That it was completely different than what he had told them, And they did it primarily to terrorize the people that are in the audience, so that they actually intentionally tried to frighten the people by making certain other stuff up. So that's a problem as well.
It's not frightening
so
at all.
What we have to do is
aliens,
once we cross the line of acknowledging that this is true, which we have now with regard to the New Paradigm Institute, that we are definitely convinced that this is true.
He's definitely convinced that this is all true. What's all true? The Travis Walton story, the Cooper Stein hoax, the Bob Lazar fraud fake story, the alien abductions. We're convinced it's all true. Again, counselor, you're putting facts and evidence without any facts. You can't just say it's true. You can't just declare it true because you want it to be. You're a lawyer. You know better. You need evidence for something to be true.
And therefore, we're trying to do a lot of the work as part of what the lawyers are doing, is trying to articulate different types of protocols that might be employed, and what type of juridical instrumentalities on our planet need to be involved in formulating such protocols, how we would go about proposing those protocols to them, etc. That's what part of what the New Paradigm Institute is doing in Washington, D.C. Now that we've gotten people's ear in the Congress, that we may be able to appropriate some funds.
There we go.
Undertaking those kind of
He
activities.
wants money to do his alien explorations, right? He wants the public to donate. Now he wants Congress to appropriate funds to him. We may have come up with a motive for Mr. Sheehan's wild, exaggerated, grandiose claims that are so far evidence-free. He has provided zero evidence of any of his claims so far.
But until we do, the New Paradigm Institute is going to be doing that kind of activity. It is part of creating the new paradigm.
That doesn't sound fun, William Runner. Electric probe up his anus.
So we're trying
him
to
into an
allay
erection.
the fears where they're unjustified. We're trying to articulate what the legitimate.
I just want to put on a record that somebody put an electric probe up my anus. I don't think I could be even shocked into an erection. That would just kill my erection. I'd be like thinking about your grandmom, right? When you got no, it just would totally kill it for me. Totally kill it.
Legitimate grounds for being concerned would be, and even moving into
the aliens made me whack off all along.
Some of the kind of things that the average person would actually
you come in and take the tissues
regarding this. Now,
after you crank one out.
Underlying all of this, of course, is the fact that those of us who
and that's another thing. Why would they need to kidnap people to get sperm? Couldn't they just like beam the napkins out of male teenagers' bedrooms all over the country? They'd get all the genetic material they ever needed, right? I would think so, but hey,
exist right now in the 4 or so generations of human beings that are alive on the planet right now.
The 1800 calls and wants their curly stash back.
We're the progeny of those portions of our human family that are survivors that have been able to reproduce. And we've got a set of cellular instincts.
Yes, it's very educational.
That have enabled us to be among the survivors. And so there's a phenomenon that I'm familiar with now. The people that I've interviewed who've had these direct contact experiences, no matter how prepared you think you are for having a direct face-to-face encounter with an extraterrestrial, highly intelligent, highly technologically developed, but non-human species, you're kidding yourself.
You're probably right about that.
If you don't think that your body is going to have some sort of deep cellular reaction that we've been unconsciously programmed to have, that has enabled us to survive in the face of the unknown. Okay. And so that is true. In that one of the things we're trying to do is work on how we can lower that instinctive reaction on the part of human beings. And Dr. John Mack and I were working on that right prior to the time he was accidentally killed in 2004. That we were having people go through
Sign me up to
holotropic breathing exercises that Stanislav Grof actually trained a couple of the repeat abductees to calm down and try to overcome that kind of instant bodily reactive response to these beings.
Yeah, and by the way, you know, look, I'm not a biologist, but what he's saying does make a lot of sense. When you're confronted with something that's not normal for you, like say a bear, your body has a reaction to that. Like I have encountered a bear in the woods, and I felt a physical sensation. So, but that would be because it's dangerous. But this clown is just suggesting we just give just give the aliens all the sperm and eggs they want so we could be friends and get the free energy and the propulsion and the anti-gravity and shit, right? I could imagine Daniel Sheehan with both hands out giving handies, right? Why don't we let's put Daniel Sheehan in charge of giving out handies to milk every volunteer he can and get all the sperm that we can get to give to the aliens. I could see Danny Sheehan, right? Get him some lotion. Get him a big bottle of lotion and tell him to get going on those handies. Collect the sperm and the egg. Now, the eggs, I don't know how to collect eggs out of a woman. I think you'd need a doctor for that or something. And they'd have to be ovulating, right? Or menstruating. Or I don't know how a woman works. Sorry. I mean, I know how to make them pop off, you know. You just got to hit that G spot, the God spot. You know, that spot was so good that God created a spot in them just so that when you hit that spot, the women say his name. Oh, God, right? The God spot. I know how to work that, but I don't know how to extract. But we could get Danny Sheehan going on extracting the sperm right now. Listen, let's do a collection. I am going to find his New Paradigm Institute address, and I'm going to send him 18 cases of the best jerk-off lotion that I could find, right? Somebody got some suggestions? I like cucumber melon myself. Like, you know, it's got a nice scent to it, good consistency to get the good quality stuff. We'll get them good quality spank-off cream, and we'll put Sheehan in charge of doing all the handies so that the aliens can have all the sperm they want and just be happy and stop kidnapping people. And his institute should be in charge of this. I think this is the plan.
And we were successful with regard to a couple of these folks that actually they were able to tell when
Vaseline, old man style. Yeah, we could send them some of that too.
Because like this kind of field of energy would happen around them, and the hair would kind of stand up on their arms and stuff. So they realized something was happening.
Probably better.
And then they would start doing the holotropic breathing. Just steadily do the holotropic breathing. So when these beings appeared, they were in a state that was much more calm than they normally were.
Algaray.
So that we were doing the very beginning of that kind of training of people to be, in a certain sense, diplomats. You know, they could keep it together and stay calm and have kind of a intelligent colloquy. You know, with these beings to be able to ask questions and get some potential information going back and forth. That's also one of the missions of the New Paradigm Institute, to be able to do that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's so much fascinating stuff there that I want to unpack, but I'm going to keep moving forward for now and move on to my next question. Great. So another thing you said recently in another interview that the Senate Intelligence Committee has DNA tests. They've done DNA tests on non-human beings that were recovered from some UFO crashes. And that the DNA tests confirm that these beings are non-human. Is this accurate? And
great. So Danny Sheehan is saying that the Senate Intelligence Committee has done DNA tests that confirm the presence of extraterrestrial visitation on Earth. Boy, that's an awfully big claim. Do we have evidence for that? Can we see the DNA reports, Danny Sheehan? This is the problem with some of these wackadoos. Like, the deeper in you get, now, he just got done saying we should just give the aliens all the sperm and ovums. Is that what you call them? I think so. Female eggs that they want, so they stop kidnapping people and we could be more friendly. Now he's claiming that there is DNA evidence confirming extraterrestrials, right? Let's see how he weasels out of this one.
And can you elaborate on that?
Well, what I've said is that, you know, that David Grush has testified to that effect, you know, on July 26th, said that.
Oh, he's testified to that effect. So guess you were bullshitting and just repeating a story you heard? Secondhand stories turn into third-hand stories. Details get added that were not part of the original telling of the story. David Grush never said that the Senate Intelligence Committee had DNA tested alien biologics and confirmed that they could not be human and they must be alien. Danny Sheehan added that to his version of the story. Welcome to UFO mythology and how it's made 101, friends. Just take an original story, tack on your own, the game of telephone. Tack on your own details, change some details, miss some details. Now he's going to backpedal and say, well, Dave Grush essentially said that. No, he didn't. No, he didn't, Danny Sheehan.
That we are in possession of biologics. That's biological evidence. Now, obviously, in order to be able to determine that a given entity is not human, the type of biologics that you would have would include DNA. It would have to.
I think you're right, Jax
and that's the reason I said that. Is that I'm convinced that the DNA tests exist on the remains, and I've had
electric bukkake boogaloo. That sounds gross.
Testimonies to me about the bodies and the recovery of the bodies.
I think you're right.
Tested the bodies.
I think you're right.
So I'm convinced that the DNA evidence exists.
Okay, so you basically said you're adding up 2 and 2 and telling us it's
That's
4,
right.
but you haven't. Nobody's come to you and directly said, "Oh, they've got these tests." But yeah, you just kind of it makes sense.
That's right.
So in other words, he's making assumptions and he's putting facts and evidence without facts in hand to prove that they're actually facts. In other words, evidence-free claims. And Solar Marshall, do you know he's telling the Cooper Stein story again, but with completely different version of the story, claiming he interviewed that anonymous guy as well, but offers no evidence and didn't press him for his claims. It's how many people, Solar Marshall, are going to recycle that Cooper Stein story? Now I'm going to have to rerun that time that we went through and debunked the shit out of that.
Okay. Do you know anything more about? I guess you don't know anything about these tests. Then I was going to ask you a few questions about like when they might have been done, how many species, and all this kind of stuff. But no.
No, I don't know. I just talked out of my ass and made claims that weren't true.
Yeah. I got a couple of questions here from Patrick at Vetted. I don't know if you're familiar with his channel. Have you come across it before?
Yes, I've heard of Patrick.
Yeah, he's doing some good stuff. He's kind of like keeping this like down to earth, skeptical but open-minded approach to look.
Skeptical but open-minded. No, you can't be skeptical of some people's claims and wholly accept other people's claims. But I don't want to disparage anybody, so we're going to try to avoid me expounding further. But what I will say is, great job on clickbait garbage stories that have no value or no meaning, right?
Looking at these things and I guess trying to keep us all.
And also another channel that comes out of nowhere and, suddenly blows up huge. And what do? They do the UFO circle jerk and they host complete and total liars and frauds and anything to get those clicks and views. Great.
Which is good. So he wants to know, did you tell Stephen Greer that Luis Elizondo was present at a facility with a UFO? I don't know when, but have you ever said that to Stephen Greer?
No. I've never said that to Stephen Greer.
Okay. And what are your thoughts in general, like your overall thoughts?
That was probably one of Stephen Greer's bullshit stories.
Well, I don't think that's a proper question. I was the legal counsel for the Disclosure Project for 20 years, and I've had lots of encounters with Stephen. Lots of discussions with him. It's not appropriate for me to be reflecting on what I think about him. It's like asking me, what do I think about Lou Elizondo as one of my clients, or what do I think about Dan Ellsberg? That's not an appropriate thing for a lawyer to do.
How many questions has he dodged so far? How many questions is this man going to dodge? Right? He really does. You can tell he's a lawyer. He's great at dodging questions and not answering them. Just give excuses and don't actually answer any questions.
So it's a good answer. I guess you just wanted to get your feeling on it. I suppose if you had a very burning passion in one way or another, you'd probably have made that clear. But that's a good answer. I have a couple of questions here from Michelangelo on Twitter. So he wants to know, again, related to these same kind of this area. Are you still Stephen Greer's attorney?
No, I never was Stephen Greer's attorney. I was the attorney for the Disclosure Project.
Right.
Disclosure Project was a 501c3 public interest organization that was that in Stephen. Excuse me. Stephen contributed funds to it.
He was coughing from the alien spooge, I think,
and engaged in activities with regard to it. But I was never his attorney.
Got you.
The attorney for the Disclosure Project.
Another dodge.
Yeah, never represented him personally. And he also was asking, are you still Lou Elizondo's attorney? So I suppose that's different because Lou is not.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're directly still Lou's attorney.
Then Mr. Sheehan is going to have a problem when that book comes out. If Mr. Lou Elizondo misrepresents that he ran a Pentagon UFO program in order to market his book, there could be some legal fallout from that in the form of consumer fraud, I would think. But again, he's the Harvard-educated lawyer, not me, right? One of the things that I would ask Daniel Sheehan is it illegal for you to completely and totally misrepresent your resume in order to market a book? That's a fair question. He's a Harvard-educated attorney. He would know the answer to that. Maybe someday I'll get to ask him that question. But interesting. He kind of dodged the question about still working for the Disclosure Project, which I don't believe he does anymore. Apparently, Stephen Greer and him had a falling out because Stephen Greer was using him in some of his bullshit stories and pissed him off. So he no longer works with the Disclosure Project or Stephen Greer, but he doesn't want to, I guess, cause waves and say that. At least that's what I've been told. That's the rumors and speculation. And that Stephen Greer had a huge problem with him representing Lou Elizondo because those two are big competition for each other and don't like each other. But I guess he chose the Elizondo side.
Yes. Yes.
Cool. I guess this question is kind of semi-relevant now that I know you weren't Stephen Greer's attorney directly, but I'll still ask it to you. So seeing as Luis Elizondo and Stephen Greer seem to be not so subtle about their animosity for each other, and this is something I've noticed as well. This question was from Michelangelo, but again, I think a lot of people have noticed that it kind of hints from both of them. What was it like to kind of represent both of them on some level, even though you weren't representing them in the same way? Was there any kind of tension there? What was that like?
Well, as I said, I didn't represent Stephen Greer personally. So whatever Stephen's personal attitude toward Lou is, or whatever Lou's attitude is towards Stephen, didn't become immediately irrelevant. I told Stephen as soon as Lou had approached me to ask me to be his attorney. I knew that there was some difference in view between what Lou was saying and what the Disclosure Project was saying. And so I told Stephen about it, and that I was intending to represent Lou. And
Stephen Greer did not like that at all. I remember when this happened.
Stephen and I had a long conversation about it. We agreed to not agree with me representing Lou, but I went ahead to represent Lou. And then there came a point in time when Stephen thought that the activities that he was attributing to Lou, which I didn't believe to be accurate, caused him to want me to not represent Lou at all if I were going to continue to represent the Disclosure Project. And so that was the last conversation he and I had about it. And then I ended up getting a letter from someone that I didn't have any idea who they were, some lawyer from New Mexico somewhere, saying that he was authorized to instruct me that I was not to present myself as the then current attorney for the Disclosure Project.
So Stephen Greer dumps Sheehan as the attorney for the Disclosure Project as soon as he started representing Lou Elizondo. Interesting. We want to thank Tommy T. For those unaware, we read every single super chat. Every single super chat, we read them. We thank you all for your kindness, generosity, and support. We thank each and every one of you for helping this viewer-supported show and helping us to praise the cash. Thank you, Tommy T. Kind and Generous 499 says, good to see Stephen. Keep up the great work you're doing. Thank you.
Praise the cash.
All right. We thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. I think it's interesting. So he is admitting, you know, he basically had to choose between Lou Elizondo and Stephen Greer, which is pretty childish in my view. Remember, Stephen Greer accused Lou Elizondo of being a disinformation agent. Not that I can't say that I disagree with that assertion, right?
If I were to continue to represent Lou Elizondo, and I didn't even bother responding to the person because I didn't know whether or not they were authorized to say that on behalf of Stephen or not, or the Disclosure Project. So that was the sort of status of the thing. Yeah. But I've talked to Stephen since then. I went to the press conference that he had.
I agree,
in June of 2023, where he presented the I guess 3 or 4 different people that from the military who had encounters of one kind or another.
Yeah, you went to that event where Dr. Stephen Greer presented 3 fake whistleblowers, or was it 4 fake whistleblowers, all of which had as much evidence as David Grush. In other words, no evidence whatsoever, right? Isn't that interesting, right?
With the phenomenon, we're perfectly cordial. You know, I like Stephen. I think Stephen likes me. And so the people keep asking these kind of trailer park questions about, you know, have you been arguing with your friend or not? I mean, I don't view that as very constructive. Yeah, but I'm very supportive of a lot of the extremely good work that Stephen has done and continues to do, and the same thing is true with Lou. You know, and I know they have some differences in opinion, but a lot of it is subjective. You know, about whether Lou's emphasis as a national security employee about that he believes there's national security questions that need to be kept secret, and Stephen and the Disclosure Project are very much in favor of disclosing everything conceivable about the thing, that those are incompatible.
But disclosing everything, and you know, it's so funny that people are going to argue over who's more credible, Lou Elizondo or Stephen Greer. Both of them claim to have superpowers, right? I'm just going to say that. They both claim they have superpowers. Both Lou Elizondo, he claims he has remote viewing superpowers, and Stephen Greer claims that he has the superpower to summon aliens and alien spaceships. Like, having a discussion or a debate about who's more credible between these two wackadoo clowns is really like a fruitless endeavor, if you ask me. But you know, people do it.
Positions, but that's understandable. But I get along with both of them.
Yeah. No, that's fine. And yeah, you're right. Stephen Greer has done lots of interesting things in this kind of area, and
yes,
very interesting character. I don't say I don't know him at all, and I don't really know what to make of him in
interesting character. Okay. That claims he has superpowers
at the moment, but yeah, it's a very interesting background. I know that you put out that statement a couple of years ago as well on Facebook that Stephen Greer had kind of taken some of your words out of context and used in a documentary and things like that. But you've made it clear that, and we touched on it last time, the false flag idea.
Yeah,
you've made it clear that you don't agree with his take on those, and you kind of side more with Lou.
As big a wackadoo as Danny Sheehan is, he didn't agree with Stephen Greer's assertion that there would be a false flag alien invasion. So I guess there are some limits to Mr. Sheehan's wackadoo belief systems. We want to thank High Speed Chase for a kind and generous $10 super chat. Says these two clowns are living on the edge. Can't say I disagree. Thanks for 2 things: being a member and your kind and generous support. We read every single super chat. Get them in, friends. Not much more time left in this broadcast tonight.
Raise the cash.
All right. Let's continue on our journey here.
Lou and Chris Mellon in their thoughts on this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to jump into some kind of super quick fire again to try and power our way through. So I know it's going to be hard because I know you have lots to say about most of this stuff, but what's the wildest thing? And I use the term wild in like most bizarre or most hard for you to fathom.
Now we're going to get to the real wackadoo belief system of Danny Sheehan.
Or the thing that still kind of gives you the most, pause for thought. What's the wildest thing related to this phenomenon that, as far as you're concerned, is true and or real? But it still blows your mind. It still gives you that kind of questioning.
Yeah, it was the account that was very credible and has been confirmed on a number of occasions now. That I'd heard a number of years ago that one of these saucers crashed. It was like 30 to 40 feet wide, and that it crashed and it had, like the other one I had seen, it had embedded itself in some kind of embankment. In the crash.
Why are almost all UFO crashes depicted as saucer-shaped objects embedded into the dirt, right? I mean, if you just Google UFO crash and you click on images, it's always embedded in dirt, right? They're always like in the side. They're always in this position here, right? Always. That's the standard UFO crash narrative. It's embedded into the side of a mountain. It's, half covered in dirt, embedded. It's like, it's interesting to me that these are the same stories. And user at Tiki71 on X sent me a new product from Danny Sheehan's new Paradigm Institute that will be available soon. It's alien themed Cabbage Patch Kids, and the first one is Mr. Sheehan, who appears to have retained his Cabbage Patch hairstyle throughout his adult life. Treat this stranger than fiction. You can't even make this stuff up. Coming soon to a toy store near you. Yeah, incredible.
In that they brought in a big 18-wheeler and bulldozer and stuff and hooked the bulldozer chains up to the craft, try to pull it out of the embankment, and a little pie-shaped slice of the craft kind of pulled loose from the rest of the craft, and this little aperture appeared in there.
Ooh,
and
an aperture.
They stopped all the operations and waited to see if anything was going to happen. And after a while, they sent in a Spec 4, a Specialist 4th class guy with a little laser light.
They're both frauds. Yes.
Or arc light to go inside to see what this was like. So, and remember, the thing was like 30 or 40 feet wide. And he goes inside, and he got inside, and it was big as football stadiums inside. He was so completely disoriented that he.
Here is the story. This is Doctor Who, the TARDIS. You remember Doctor Who? It looked like a phone booth sized thing, but when you opened the door and went in, it was huge inside. This is the Doctor Who thing. Come on. People have been telling versions of this bullshit story in various different ways for years, if not decades. Nobody's ever proven it. Nobody's ever produced the original so-called first-hand witnesses of it. It's just another trust me, bro story.
He threw up. And then backed right out of the place. And he discovered that he'd been in there for like 2 hours or something. So he lost all track of time and space inside the craft. That I think is one of the more extraordinary pieces of information, which I believe to be true.
Yeah. Well, that fits the bill pretty well, I would say. Yeah. Just to go back to briefly on Lou, why do you think because I do hear plenty of time, on the internet, maybe it's just that the internet, people will say anything, but why are there seemingly people like murmuring that, he's not Lou Elizondo's lawyer anymore, and this kind of thing?
I have no
idea. It just,
I have no idea why people murmur.
Yeah. The same reason they murmur about everything else, I suppose.
I don't know. They murmur all kinds of things. I don't pay much attention to any of that. I've been at this for 50 years, representing people. So people murmuring about, whatever they murmur about, I don't pay much attention to.
That's an odd question. Why does Lou Elizondo mumble so much?
Good. I'm glad. Again, last time we spoke, you mentioned that we, as in the human race, I don't know which pockets of us, are trying to reverse engineer some of this tech, this non-human tech that we've recovered for missiles. You alluded to it again at the start of our conversation today. Who have you heard that from directly, or is it simply, again, like you're kind of reading between the lines?
Oh, no. I've talked to, half a dozen different people that have firsthand knowledge.
Oh, firsthand knowledge, firsthand witnesses. Great.
About the back engineering operation here, down to particular aerospace companies that are engaged in it, etc.
So he talked to people who made claims. Did any of those people actually have evidence of their claims? I'm guessing not, because Danny loves to repeat stories people tell him without actually vetting their stories, vetting their background, fact-checking their claims. He's great at repeating stories people tell him.
Yeah,
and
so
making the weapons.
We're entirely confident about that.
Yeah,
we're entirely confident,
and that it's weaponry and not just trying to reverse engineer, the craft and everything.
Well, both.
They're going straight
both.
down the road.
Both. Trying to back engineer the technology for flight, in whatever type of alternative energy sources they might have, etc. But I do know, and the one I'm most concerned about is the fact that they're attempting to develop a weapon system, propelling U.S. nuclear missiles at super speed to be able to strike into Russia.
I love how all of these guys are also experts on like missile weaponry and aeronautics. You're a lawyer. You don't know anything about missiles, Danny Sheehan. Stay in your lane.
In China within 2 minutes. That's terribly dangerous.
Yeah, that's somber. That's a terrifying thought, and especially if, like we said, the other countries, Russia, China, potentially are on the same road as us.
Not especially. It's not. It doesn't make it especially more dangerous. We're dangerous. I mean,
I think you're right.
Doing it is dangerous. Because it totally destabilizes the entire geopolitical structure that we have for prohibiting those kind of first strike weapons.
Now he's an expert on geopolitics.
Like Americans always say things like, well, it would be really bad if Russia were to be, it's really bad if we've got it, but in light of the national security state people and what we know about them and what their motivations are, that have become so completely distorted.
Yes,
I just refer people to
the monopoly guy. Absolutely.
1992 United States Defense Department policy planning guidance.
Look, I was drunk.
Get a copy of the first draft of it. It's still classified, but get a look at that. And look what they're saying.
They lost
now
the
that the Soviet Union has stepped back voluntarily out of the Cold War. We ought to not, reduce our military budget. We ought to increase our military budget so that we can establish military dominance over the whole planet. And that the purpose of this entire operation is to maintain our continued privileged access to the strategic raw materials that we need for our major industry.
I agree. So, Marshall, that's why we're doing
that as your mission, and that it conflates with national security as the United States. You know that you don't want that group of people.
How this lawyer is going to talk for this long and provide no evidence of anything he's talking about? He's a Harvard-educated lawyer. Just listen to my bullshit stories.
Being in possession of technology like this, because they will weaponize it and they'll use it for this ulterior motive. In the fact that Russia gets it or China gets it, which they all do. There isn't a single piece of technology that the United States has developed, that the Russians or Chinese haven't gotten within a matter of a few years. So it's totally insane, this whole operation, and the both of them consider each other the ultimate adversary, which means that they're just both functioning from a kind of classic Hegelian dialectical kind of reptilian mindset. That's all that's going on. So we have to transcend that whole kind of psychology if we're going to survive as a species.
Hopefully we do. A couple of questions here from a friend. They wanted to ask a few things about the programs in the you're going to be running with.
I just want to say, like, how lazy is this interviewer? Because half these questions were from his friends. Like, he can't write some questions, and who cares though? Because Sheehan just keeps deflecting questions, right, and not answering them. So who cares, I guess, who's answering the questions? But if you notice through this whole interview, it's like, oh, my friend from this other UFO Circle Jerk podcast wanted to know this, Mr. Sheehan, and my friend, this guy, wanted to know this.
This Ubiquity University. So I'll kind of ask you all of this in one kind of.
Oh, so this is great. Now Daniel Sheehan is offering people fake, I guess they're fake master's degrees and fake PhDs from his institute. And it's thousands of dollars to get the PhD.
Bunch, and you can kind of respond to it however you want. So this person, they want to know more about the New Paradigm Institute PhD program in ET studies. How do you anticipate that PhD will be used? I.e., what would you do with it? How long would it take to get it? And by the time you've got it, how would you anticipate the world would have changed so it would be an important thing to have? Let me know if you wanted to recap any.
Sure. No, I understand that. No. The bottom line is it's both a master's degree and a potential PhD degree.
This is another money grab. This is another money grab. You can get an academic certificate, right? And look at this. The underlying education attained, and it's not a PhD, Danny Sheehan. That's consumer fraud. It's not a real PhD. Your organization is not an accredited university that can hand out master's degrees or PhDs. It's a certificate program. In other words, you can give this organization thousands of dollars, or is it hundreds of dollars, and they'll give you a fake PhD or master's program in what's called UAP studies to fool your stupid friends with. The underlying education obtained through our certificate program will familiarize you concerning the history of UFO sightings and interactions since 1945 and political response on the part of the U.S. Congress and U.S. President to the stunning public testimony of officials from deep within the U.S. Defense Department. 2, enable you to increase your awareness of the latest information acquired in cosmology, quantum physics, and subtle human biophysics pertaining to UAP. Understand the various worldviews that shape people's perception of the UFO phenomenon. 4, empower you to take action in your local area to encourage government leaders to support full disclosure, right? Great. Is offering this academic certificate program with ubiquity in light of recent legislation by the U.S. Congress signed into law. We are not alone. The UAP disclosure. This is our ET movement, right? I don't know if where the prices are, right? Oh, I'll get that. We could register, right? Courses of the program, and you have to go through all 4 to get the certificate. Oh, look, they'll be transferred to Ubiquity University for a graduate master or PhD program in extraterrestrial studies. This is a groundbreaking partnership and marks the first full academic degree program in extraterrestrial studies in the world. This is great. I got to call them and find out if they're an accredited university that can actually offer a real master or PhD degree. Or is this just a degree mill? You hang it on your wall, right? Let's get back to the video, and I will try to register to tell you how much this fake PhD or fake master's degree. By the way, I'm just assuming it's a fake degree because I don't think that you could just hand out master's degrees and PhDs without an awful lot of paperwork and accreditation and government involvement. And I don't think he has that, but I could be wrong. And if so, I will apologize. I'm going to call their institute tomorrow and clarify that point. I will report on that tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, regardless of whatever other show we're doing.
The reality is that's like asking a person, 40 years ago, well, why would you want to have anybody study computer science? Or why would anybody want to learn to be a programmer, a computer programmer? Why would you want to do that? It was perfectly clear that we're on the very brink of coming to the full cultural realization.
We're on the brink of disclosure. This clown was saying that in 2001 with Stephen Greer, 20 plus years ago. We're on the brink of disclosure. Now he's saying we're on the brink of disclosure again. I guess still chase the carrot. Disclosure's still coming. Don't let your disclosure boner go soft. Disclosure's still coming.
There's an extraterrestrial civilization around us. and that they're coming and going from our planet, and sooner than later, we're going to be having direct relations with them. Diplomatic.
Sooner rather than later, we're going to be having direct extraterrestrial visitation and diplomacy with them.
Relations, commercial relations, etc. And people need to start preparing for that upcoming eventuality. So just like people need to learn how to fly jet planes, as they're developing them, you ought to learn how to fly them, and that's what has to get done here.
And this is kind of troubling to me, because if he's saying like, oh, there's definitely aliens and you can buy my course on it for, I tracked it down. The one course, I think you have to take all 4 of the courses in order to get the fake degree or the PhD or whatever. $199 for a course. The Facts, History, Law, and the Politics of UAP with Daniel Sheehan, $199. And what do you get for that? You get a fake PhD or a fake master's degree. Great.
So people need to really become familiar with the entire range of extraterrestrial studies. Every single field of human knowledge is rooted.
Yeah, you get superpowers with your degree as well.
Understanding of physics, right? And the physical nature of reality. And all the other fields of knowledge, no matter what you think about it, all build on that. And so as soon as you start,
you know what I love too, like they're not going to require an undergraduate degree, right? Lou Reviews is here and says, how depressing is that stage you have to cross to get your superpowers degree? It's so stupid. But they're not going to require you to have a real undergraduate college degree. They're just handing out fake. I think they're just handing out fake PhDs and fake master's degrees, which is really problematic for me. Like, could you just be a high school dropout and just go get your fake degree and tell everybody that you're a PhD in UAP studies? And all that's going to do is put more people in the camp with fake credentials. You know how many fake doctors there are in the world of UFOs? Countless people claiming to be doctors, and they got their degree from like a holistic institute of WACKADOO.
Start to change the underlying understanding of physics and the material nature of reality. Things start to change, and you need to be prepared for that. And the reality is that the discoveries that were made in the area of quantum physics between 1923 and 1926 have still not been fully integrated into our cultures. People still are functioning on the old Newtonian, Cartesian, strictly materialistic worldview, and it's not true. And so that we still haven't adjusted to that. And so that what we've got to do is start getting
what we got to do is sell people fake PhDs and fake master's degrees.
The generation of scholars in the world adjusted to the new reality. So we have to first determine what the new reality is, and what do we know about the new reality, and therefore what do you need to do to adjust your present thinking in various areas of human knowledge. So it's a profoundly important issue. And it runs everywhere from adjusting to respond economically to the infusion of a new set of technologies that
this is all Stephen Greer talking points, but that's no surprise because he worked with and for Stephen Greer in the Disclosure Project for 20 years. This is all those, oil and gas will collapse and we're going to get all new technology and free energy. It's all Stephen Greer bullshit.
That completely antiquate fossil fuels.
There you go. There you go.
But all the economic
free energy
repercussions of those are about which most people don't even think. That people don't realize that the American dollar is a petrodollar. It's rooted in the present evaluation of petroleum. They don't understand even what that's all about.
Stephen Greer, free energy
but
talking
when you
points.
remove petroleum as your major source of energy, mechanical and electrical generation energy, you alter your entire economic structure. So people need to try to figure out what we're going to do about that. And the same thing.
And weren't you the lawyer for a man who Well, you were the lawyer for the Disclosure Project. Do you know, Danny Sheehan, about the Orion Project, in which Stephen Greer collected $500,000 to create a free energy device and then gave the world nothing? Then he collected another $500,000 just to make a film about free energy, right? Stephen Greer has collected $1 million with these false talking points. Free energy is a scam. It's a bigger scam than UFOs. Go look into it. Go look into the millions of dollars that people have been scammed out of by free energy scammers, right? And by the way, Stephen Greer would be considered one of those free energy scammers because he collected something like $500,000 and then he never produced anything that he promised. That's a free energy scam by definition, Daniel Sheehan. And you are a Harvard-educated lawyer and you're sitting here like an idiot, repeating false talking points of a false disclosure prophet, free energy scammer in the form of Dr. Stephen Greer, who also has superpowers and can summon alien spaceships and alien entities at will.
It's true about,
but he can't prove any of it.
Theology and philosophy. When you realize that virtually every one of the octave of human worldviews, their derivative philosophy is assuming that we are the only highly intelligent, sentient, and highly technologically developed species in the whole universe.
That's because to all of science knowledge, we are the only known intelligent species, Daniel Sheehan. Though some could argue that whales and other creatures are awfully intelligent as well.
As preposterous as an idea as that is, it still holds sway. So we have to really try to figure out, in light of the fact that we're now coming to realize that that isn't true, how do we adjust our theology, our entire field of philosophy? How do we understand ourselves?
So in other words, you're going to pay him $200 so that he could wax poetically and speculate. I don't think speculation is worth $200, but hey, you get a fake degree to hang on your wall too. So there's that.
The universe. If the universe, all those hundreds of trillions of stars don't exist just as a stage on which to play out the drama of the evolution of one single species, on our planet, evolving teleologically from, single cell life forms into voyagers to the stars. If that isn't the only drama going on in the universe, what else is happening? How do we reflect upon that? So, I mean, it's obvious why.
I agree, Patty. It's worthless unless there's accreditation.
Extraterrestrial studies start preparing to readjust all the fields of human knowledge to absorb this extraordinary reality.
Oh, he has courses on the JFK assassination too. Great.
Awesome. And just to clarify, in like a kind of 10-second answer or less, how long would they take, like the courses, approximately the duration? Do you have that?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's going to take you about the same period of time it gets to have a master's degree or a degree in any of the other fields. This is a serious program.
Yeah.
This isn't like
a serious program
cover, getting a degree from, filing your local, internet set. This is something important. This is going to.
Yeah. And we may be conflating two things. He might not have the PhD and master's programs up on his website. So far, he has certificate degrees, but they mention master's and PhD programs. But all I see is 4 $200 courses and various nonsense by Danny Sheehan on the website so far. But like I said, I give you my word, I will call them tomorrow. Hopefully somebody answers the phone and will answer my questions.
Serious, scholastic, academic endeavor.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing more updates as it all progresses. I've got a couple of questions here.
Definitely from the planet Druid.
David.
Yes.
He asks, what power system drives their vehicles, and what does this power source mean for us, given our reliance on coal, gas, nuclear, wind, and solar?
Yeah. Well, thank you, David. If I knew that,
quick answers appreciated.
No, that we're not sure what it is. People have speculated about it being 0 point energy and fusion energy,
more Greer talking points.
But we don't
more
know.
Greer talking.
That's one of the reasons why we need to have the Senate Intelligence Committee.
People have speculated that it's 0 point. No, Greer has said it is, as if that's a fact. Now he's saying, but we really don't know. I'm sure the aliens are real. What's their power source for their craft? We don't know, right? Jesus Christ. You know, I don't even think these people think about the nonsense that comes out of their mouth.
And the House Intelligence Committee informed about the degree of progress that has been made in trying to figure this out, rather than keeping it as a national security state secret so they can make weapons out of it. We don't know the answer to that yet.
But I think regardless of what it is, it has enormous implications for us based on our reliance on fossil fuels.
Absolutely, totally. World-changing. It will atrophy immediately the need for fossil fuels.
Stephen Greer talking points.
Yeah.
That's
it changes everything on a dime. This one is from Eduardo. He said, "Can you share with us about the symbols that you saw on one of these retrieved craft?" Actually, we talked about that earlier. He said, "Is it similar to that on the Rendlesham incident, like ancient hieroglyphic symbols?"
No, they're
so I don't know if
they're very different. Yeah, they're not like those, and they're not
like slants and like dots and stuff, right? Like
they're not like the ones at Roswell on the little beams. They're totally different, you know. And
whereabouts on the craft were they?
Something about
they were along the bottom of the dome of the craft. They were all along right at the edge.
Yes, and he claimed that he copied those symbols down and kept it in a Jesuit vault for years, but now he doesn't have it. So trust me, bro. I saw a picture of an alien crash landed vehicle with symbols on it. I copied the symbols, but now I don't have it. I can't show it to you. I can't show you the symbols, right?
The bottom edge of the dome, you could see them.
And what color, like, were they compared to the dome? Like, just
it was black and white photographs.
Yeah. But the text was the lighter color then.
Darker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Darker color.
Interesting. This one is from Liam. Is the abduction phenomenon a major obstacle to beginning a disclosure process? And are there other disquieting behaviors which would be problematic to discuss openly?
That's a sub-function of one of your earlier questions. The abduction issue is a significant issue because it violates so many of the basic ethical principles of our human family, and so therefore there's a great deal of concern that the extraterrestrial species may be functioning with a different ethical system than we, even though, as you hear every time, the fact that we abduct animals, and bring them to the zoo and do experiments on them
with no permission.
Without their permission, and but we hate to have ourselves.
This is stupid circular logic. Like, well, we abduct animals, so for sure aliens would abduct humans.
Considered.
This is their proof, right? Oh well, there's definitely a precedent for people kidnapping, other creatures because we humans do that.
In the same category as we can see animals.
I love that
because it scares everybody to think how completely inhuman we are but all too human we are to animals. So that scares us.
Yeah, especially when we think about the fact we eat them as well. But let's not carry on down that road because we don't want to give anybody nightmares. No. Do you still believe that Travis Taylor and Jay Stratton are working against UFO disclosure? Like, where are you on this?
Well, yeah, this is interesting. Jay Stratton and Travis Taylor opposed the NDAA amendment because I believe they did that because then the government could come to Skinwalker and confiscate any of their shit. And they know they have no evidence. So in order to bluff the whole situation and get around, they didn't want the government to have that, eminent domain rights to be able to confiscate materials. So they opposed it, and Danny Sheehan came out hard against them as being part of the cover-up.
All I said is that I know that once they left the U.S. government employment and became employed by Radiance Technology, and we know that Radiance Technology is working on this program of prompt global strike, of trying to back engineer the technology, and that they have actively engaged in meeting with members of Congress to persuade them to vote against the bill. That's just simple, and that I assume they still are. And one of the major areas of their concern was the eminent domain, which is the concern of the private aerospace industry that is wanting to make personal profit.
Yeah, so apparently the original form of the NDAA with eminent domain would allow the United States government to just swoop in and grab any UFO or UAP materials or evidence, and the private individuals, many of which are profiting personally from claims of having things like that in their possession, don't want the government to get that right or ability. I think it's because it would prove that they really don't have any evidence. Because if they did, wouldn't the government swoop in and take it, right?
The intellectual property rights to the technology, and I understand that. I understand that once you shift your mission, you have a different mission than trying to just get as much disclosure as you can, because you've been hired to advocate the interests.
I agree, Wise Monkey, 100%.
That's all that's happening, and I'm assuming that
they didn't want the government taking the dino beavers.
Yeah,
they were going to take the dino beavers.
I wonder, like, where do you think the best chance of disclosure would come from? Do you think it would come from government, or do you think there could be? I'm not saying all private companies. I know that the vast majority are driven purely for their own profit, as you said, to line their pockets. But do you think there would be a reasonable chance that some individual or one or two companies could give us a better chance for disclosure than relying on the federal government themselves?
No, I think that there has to be a combination of pursuing every single avenue you can. Obviously, we're trying to get people from inside the aerospace industry that know about this to come forward.
Yeah, isn't it interesting that almost no one from the aerospace industry has come forward to confirm claims of UFO back engineering programs in the hands of private industry? Not one, to my knowledge, not a credible one.
And talk about it. But we've adopted the tactic of having this pass through the Senate Intelligence Committee, because in the constitutional...
Yeah, and this way they can claim they have evidence, say they showed it to Congress, and never prove it. Why don't you prove what evidence has been shown, since you're so in the know, Danny Sheehan? Or is this just another bluff?
Juridical framework that we have in our democracy, this is how we've set it up, is to be able to have these people be able to vet this information in light of the fact that we have this entire field of knowledge of national security information. So that we want to bring all this information to the Senate and House Intelligence Committees and have them take a look at this. But we do need to have some outside experts.
So, in other words, confirm our alien delusional beliefs made with no evidence. Force the government to find evidence that isn't there. And then claim cover-up when they don't find any evidence, just like they did with Arrow. Why would the government continue to do things for these UFO wackadoos? They did an entire... They stood up an entire organization, investigated every claim, found zero evidence of alien technology, alien spaceships, alien biologics, alien crash retrieval programs. Then they get attacked and called part of the cover-up. But now Daniel Sheehan expects the government to do even more than they've already done. After he himself called Arrow, a clown show and, a part of a classic cover-up, just like Blue Book.
Take a look at this to advocate on behalf of the public interest. But that's the job of the elected representatives in our representative democracy. So that's why we're...
I bet you he does, Blue Riders DG. Thanks for being a member.
The best avenue through which to have this come forward. But at the same time, we're openly advocating that every single citizen reach out to try to establish as best they can direct communication with extraterrestrial beings as citizen diplomacy, just like we did back prior in the Cold War, reached out to establish direct communications with Soviet citizenry in our
Smoking dogs.
So they could exchange
was that a Skinwalker
students and stuff like that there? And get to realize that neither one of them are real boogeymen.
Thank you, Patty. I appreciate
so
you.
That what we want to do is we want to establish an entire program of citizen diplomacy, which is another major project of the New Paradigm Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Sheehan for 20 years was all chips in with Greer, and they have a falling out. Now, essentially, Sheehan stood up a nonprofit organization to compete. I think it would compete with Greer's garbage, disclosure organization. Hybrid beings don't have toes. Take your shoes off, Sheehan. Could be. Maybe he's a hybrid.
What would you do you have any idea about what the most recent crash that's been recovered, like a crash recovery? Have you got any clue about the recent recoveries?
No, there's information flying around about some of them.
Yeah.
I don't know what the latest one would be.
Yeah. What about the Virginia case? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know.
Don't know. Have you seen James Fox's documentary about it?
I did. Yeah. I've seen it.
You don't know where you stand.
I've seen it. Well, that it was they were very credible witnesses, and stuff to the whole thing. But that's not a very recent event. When you were asking about what the most recent events are, that was.
I mean, 90 was it 96?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around. Yeah. I mean, that's like
30 years ago.
It's getting like 30 years ago.
Almost 30 years ago.
I'm sure there've been much more recent events than then.
You think there have been more recent events than that?
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Recoveries.
I'm sure of that.
Yeah. Wow. Do you have any idea how many craft have been recovered? How many craft the US government has, or private aerospace has in possession? Like, do you just have any clue of a number?
There's a specific number that is talked about by the whistleblowers. There's nine of them.
9
at least.
And what about bodies? Have you got any clue?
I love how everybody says something different. When these so-called experts are asked, like, well, how many craft are in the possession of the United States government? Everybody's got a different answer for you. 9, right? Is that what Bob Lazar said? Solar Marshal, how many craft did Bob Lazar say were at S4? Was it 9? Because some people just parrot Bob Lazar's explanation for how many. Other people have said a dozen, more than a dozen. It depends on who you ask. Why can't they even get the number right? Could it be because they're all bullshitting and no one has any idea?
Who on that?
Dozens
of alien bodies.
So that would imply that there are more bodies than craft, seemingly.
Yes. One craft had as many as 14 bodies.
Yeah, there he's talking about Aztec, I think, which is a provably fake story with the 14 bodies.
Wild. Do they walk among us? And what does that mean when people say that? You know, we hear people say that, like Bob Bigelow. I think James.
Maybe I'll do that. 105 North Side.
What Robert Bigelow said to him. But
yeah. So he's just repeating.
Do they walk among us? And what does that really mean? How do we?
He just repeated Bob Lazar's claim. So he's repeating the claims of a convicted pimp fake scientist with no evidence to show. How many alien spaceships does the government have? 9. Because a convicted pimp fake scientist who was bankrupt at the time he came out with his story and wasn't a real scientist but claimed to be a government scientist said they have 9. You see how these people, they just repeat the same claims made by other people. And if the first guy who claimed that didn't prove it, why should you repeat unproven claims? But that's all we've heard through this whole thing.
We clarify that.
I can tell you what I know, that any of the artists' renditions of hybrids. Yeah, I'm convinced that there's a hybridization program.
Oh my God,
that has been going on for some decades. But the most
so now he's not only co-signed Bob Lazar bullshit. He used to co-sign Dan Burrish bullshit, Stephen Greer bullshit he co-signs, Lou Elizondo bullshit he co-signs. He's repeating Bob Lazar bullshit, David Grush bullshit, and now he's repeating more bullshit, like claims from John Mack and others, right? And who was that? The panty sniffer guy? Remember the panty sniffer, David Jacobs, right, from Temple University? Claims there's an ongoing hybridization program. They're trying to make alien hybrids and integrate them into our society. It's a whole big conspiracy theory. What's the evidence for it? Trust me, bro.
Advanced stages of that, in my direct experiences, that you can still tell that one of these hybrid people are a hybrid person, with an extraterrestrial species. That they're usually bred with these grays, so that you get some function of the large head and the large oval black eyes, the kind of diminished nose and ears. Those are still features of the hybrids. And that's if you run into somebody like that, they theoretically could walk among us, but they wouldn't get among very far because some people are going to say, "Excuse me, can you tell me where you're from?" And so but
they're from Zeta Reticuli, of course.
There's this whole other line of argument is that there is at least one other extraterrestrial species that looks, quote, just like us, that is in fact us, that is like.
Now he's just repeating 1950s contactee claims. Who showed us aliens that look exactly like us? All prove it. Who claimed that there were aliens that looked exactly like us? The 1950s contactees, complete and total frauds like Adamski, complete and total frauds like Frank Stranges, complete and total frauds like Billy Meyer, all claimed the aliens look just like us, right? And now he's repeating those unproven claims. This entire interview has been Danny Sheehan repeating completely and totally unproven claims as if they were 100% true.
Our ancestry, in that we are kind of, an experiment going on here on the planet of having, brought some of those beings here, and that we've evolved out of those people from, and usually they attribute it to the Pleiades, and that therefore, if that were true, then obviously they could move among us. They would learn our.
And just to inject some real science, people have claimed for decades that aliens that look just like humans come from the Pleiadian star system. Well, to my knowledge, there have been no discovered habitable life. There have been no planets in the Pleiadian star system capable of supporting life discovered yet. And we have that capability. So these are unproven, unscientific stories. He's just repeating stories over and over and over, rinse and repeat. Repeated stories is not evidence, Daniel Sheehan.
Our language and move among us. I've never been convinced. That there is an extraterrestrial species that is human. I don't. At the present time, I don't believe that. So I don't share this kind of anxiety that.
Yeah. So he starts off, saying that there are humans, human-like ETs that walk among us, and now he says he doesn't believe it. So which is it?
That President Clinton is an alien, or any of those tabloid arguments about that. I don't
tabloid arguments.
That.
His entire interview so far has been tabloid arguments, but he's going to complain about other tabloid arguments that are too out there.
I'm saying it's false, but I don't affirmatively believe it at this stage.
Yeah, fair enough. I had a couple of
beings are pretty conspicuous. These beings are pretty conspicuous when they show up. Yeah, you don't have any doubt. Gee, I wonder if that's a real person. No, they're not.
Yeah. I had a few people comment on one of my videos before. I can't remember if it was the first one with you, but basically telling me I need to just out myself as an alien. I should just get the whole thing over and done with and stop denying it, because I clearly am with the bald head and everything.
People get to be pretty unstable.
Well, I will say that an alien might not be familiar enough with our culture to know that mustache style went out of fashion, by 1900? So 124 years ago. But hey, you do you, mustache guy. Yeah, tell me about the aliens. See, twirl it.
Speculations going on, and that's again one of the reasons the New Paradigm Institute has been established, is to try to get everybody to calm down, much more centered.
That's a funny thing too. Like, how can we make this Daniel Sheehan repeating completely and totally false claims for 2 hours more ridiculous? Let's get a guy with a twirly mustache. Yeah, tell us about the aliens, see?
Stop speculating.
It's like they're trying to make this subject worthy of mockery.
Stop conflating complete fiction, science fiction with reality. Let's try to figure out exactly what's going on here so that we can figure out legally and juridically what to do about this. Okay? That's why we keep asking people, it was just a simple newparadigminstitute.org. newparadigminstitute.org.
Now he's doing the pitch. Go to that and give me money.
To all this information, it'll hook you through to the different courses that are being taught on this.
My
so
shit.
If you really want to become a serious student of these issues,
you got to give him money.
There are courses that are going to be providing all.
You got to give him money if you want to be a serious student of alien bullshit.
All the basic information. Now, a lot of people who know all kinds of stuff already are going to say, wait a second, I already know about all this. They may know about some of it. They may know about a lot of it. But it needs to be done in a systematic and professional way so that you get to really reflect upon it with others. Write papers about it or do essays about it. You do genuine research into these fields. So it's going to advance this area significantly over the next few years.
Awesome. And I'll put that link in the description, of course. So if anybody wants to get there easily, just scroll down and click on that. Okay, so one question that I really wanted to ask you was, have you ever seen a UFO yourself?
No, I've never seen a UFO or anything I even thought was a UFO.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Except on a picture, but
the picture.
Never in the sky. Yeah,
never first hand.
Oh, that's interesting. So he's never even seen a UFO, but he's convinced they're alien spaceships visiting us from other star systems somehow.
No.
Talk about a faith-based belief system.
Have you ever had any other anomalous experiences, whether it be regarding kind of psychic phenomena or, death-related phenomena, such as an after-death communication or near-death experience? No. Anything at all?
No, I've just read enough about the various pieces to determine what I believe to be true, but I haven't had any of those experiences.
No, I read some books.
But I did get accepted at Harvard University one time, which I thought was a miracle. So apparently those kind of things happen, whatever that kind of metaphysical thing is, right?
Yeah, whatever the process is that allows it. There you go. Yeah, I mean, and the rest is history after your career. Just to tag on then to something we were talking about just before, we were mentioning the hybrids thing.
Yes.
Can I just tag on with a?
He just waved to somebody in his office, so somebody in his office is listening to him talk all this wackadoo nonsense, right? Interesting.
Question from Robert here on Patreon. He wanted to ask, are you aware of much evidence for David Jacobs' thesis about the hybrid situation?
Well, David, I know David. I've had lots of conversations with David.
So those were David Jacobs, the panty sniffer. Remember we covered that PhD Pantygate, where an alien abduction researcher was hypnotizing women and telling them, while hypnotized, send me your panties if they got alien spooge on them, but don't tell nobody. That's the guy whose claims that he is repeating about an alien hybridization program on planet Earth. In other words, Mr. Daniel Sheehan is a wackadoo repeating the claims of some other incredibly not credible wackadoos like David Jacobs.
Starting all the way back in 1994. And his thesis is that that these activities of especially the abductions and the involuntary breeding program and stuff is violative of every kind of basic ethical standard that we've got. It entails kidnapping, rape, assault. There's all those things, and it's perfectly valid.
You heard it here first. Aliens, Danny Sheehan is upset about aliens raping people. There are some aliens out there just kidnapping and raping people. And Danny Sheehan is upset about this. And he agrees, he's kind of agreeing with David Jacobs, a wackadoo who has made a career selling multiple books while hypnotizing women and having those women send him his panties. For research purposes.
Locking down on those things and saying this is completely unacceptable, and that we ought to take steps to get it to stop. So I agree with him on that. We need to do that. We need to do it diplomatically.
We need to stop those alien R words. I don't want to keep saying it. YouTube algorithm doesn't like that word. We need to stop those aliens. You know how we stop the alien R's? We just give them our sperm. He said it earlier. Just give him our sperm. And I, for one, I volunteered Danny Sheehan to give every guy who wants to donate their sperm to the aliens a handy. I'm sending them some lotion. I'm going to do that. And if you think I'm kidding, you don't know me or my show or my channel very much.
We don't need to go to war about it. We just need to figure out how to get it to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, let's not go to war, Danny Sheehan. Just jerk off everybody that wants to donate their sperm. And then I guess you got to figure out how to get those ovums or eggs out of all the willing women donors, right?
Okay. Look, Danny, you've been super generous with your time with me yet again. I've loved talking with you. Is there any kind of message or any last words you want to leave with people that have watched and listened to this? Could be anything.
Just that I do want them to just get in touch with us. The New Paradigm Institute.
Oh, so there's the pitch, and I'm going to stop it here because I'm not sure if that music is not copyrighted. So we made it through. We made it through another wackadoo of the week. I'm calling it. Yes, we have reached a conclusion. Daniel Sheehan has spent 2 hours co-signing Bob Lazar's false claims, a fake convicted pimp scientist, co-signing David Jacobs' claims, a man who got caught hypnotizing women and begging them to send him panties. He's co-signing Grush's claims with no evidence. He's co-signing Elizondo's claims with no evidence, and many others. John Mack's evidence-free claims. What we got in this interview is Daniel Sheehan, a man who might otherwise be considered a credible person, a Harvard-educated lawyer. This just goes to show you that anybody can go full wackadoo. Even a Harvard-educated lawyer can just get lost too deep down this rabbit hole and just believe all these evidence-free claims and just repeat them. And that's what we got here. He just repeated the claims. But hey, send me money and we'll sell you a fake PhD. Well, possibly, allegedly, fake PhD or fake master's degree. I'm going to call them and clarify that point. He also seemed to co-sign the claims of early contactees that they're human-looking ETs, but then backed off of that. This whole thing is him repeating claims of things people told him, but he has absolutely no evidence. Just like in his story, oh no, I saw a picture of an alien spacecraft that crash landed. Great, can we see the picture? I don't have it. But in the picture, there was symbols on the craft, and I copied them down. Great. Can we see the symbols? No, I lost it, or the Jesuits lost it in the Jesuit vault somehow. Convenient that he can make all these fantastic out-of-this-world claims, but not prove even the simplest of things, like show us the alien symbols then. Oh, I don't have them. I can't. Yeah, there's always a convenient out when pressed for evidence. And this whole interview is ridiculous. And yes, see, I think that I never paid very close attention to Mr. Sheehan's claims just because I knew that he was closely associated with and often co-signed the claims of Dr. Stephen Greer, who I think is the biggest bullshitter in the, like, if I had to pick one, well, it's a cross between David Wilcock and Stephen Greer, and maybe Corey Good thrown in. I don't know. But Stephen Greer is definitely in the top 5 people providing evidence-free claims, making tons of money, but never actually providing any evidence. So we'll take some comments and questions from the live chat. Please put them in all capital letters. We'll be closing the broadcast soon. So anybody who's feeling generous, we read every single super chat. Get them in. I will read them, and we'll check in with our PayPal donations too. He drew them on a Lou live show back in the day. He did Roswell symbols from his memory. Oh, that's interesting. Daniel Boone said, if he was wealthy, he wouldn't be ripping people off. Well, I guess a Harvard law degree doesn't pay what it used to because he's full in on the grift. Sheehan's head in an alien hole eating up this crap. Yeah, Solar Marshall says, I'm right. Well, what do you know? You and I agree on something again. Typically, I guess you open your phone and he will say that is to lawyer you up. Hand job clinic, Steve. Priorities. I've got a friend who wants to know. Yeah, we got to get Danny Sheehan working on these hand jobs. Danny Sheehan said in this, if this isn't wackadoo, I don't know what is. Daniel Sheehan said in this interview that if we could just figure out a way to get these aliens the sperm they want and the female eggs, they'll stop kidnapping and raping people. So therefore, I think the only solution is to get Danny Sheehan a lot of lotion and get him to start giving out them handies so that we could milk the dude. People need to be milked. Somebody's going to have to jerk off an awful lot of people to keep these aliens happy. Somebody's going to have to give an awful lot of handies. And since this whole thing is his idea, look, I'm not giving any dudes hand jobs just to keep the alien invaders away. This is his idea, and I think that he should take some responsibility and be the guy that has to give all the guys donating the sperm the handies. That's my take, and I'm sticking to it. I don't know how you get eggs out of a woman. I think they have to be extracted by like a gynecologist or some kind of gynecological exam. I'm gonna have to ask my wife. Like I just don't know. But Blue Shift Radio says let's donate. Yeah. Well, anybody that donates to me for this whole week, I'm spending it on hand lotion. And if anybody thinks I'm kidding, you don't know me. I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to get the best jerk off cream, handy lotion that I could find, right? I have my personal preference, but that's too much information. So if you have any suggestions for handy lotion, like some guys prefer old school, just Vaseline, right? Some guys like scented lotion, right? I got some cucumber melon, right? It's not in here. I got some cucumber melon lotion. It's very effective, Lou Reviews is here and says so many hand jobs tonight. Yeah. Look, I think this is a reasonable. He's the one that says we got to give the aliens sperm, and then they can stop kidnapping and R-ing people, right? Or violating people. I think, look, I could totally see Sheehan at the front of a line with both hands. He can do two at once, Lou Reviews. He can do two handies at once. He's going to have to. These aliens apparently abduct hundreds or thousands of people a year to get the sperm cells they need. So, Danny Sheehan, you got some work to do, brother. You better get going milking all these dudes' balls and cocks and get it. And I don't know, just looking at him, he looks like an expert in masturbatory techniques. I think I'm going to go out on a limb. I think Danny Sheehan could give a good handy. He just looks like he could, right? Yeah, I agree. Solar Marshall says, after watching this, I realized just how much Steve Greer and Danny Sheehan are alike. Yeah, they worked on the same project for 20 years, so they're using the same talking points, right? Solar Marshall says, I just puked drink all over. Shut up, Solar Marshall. Listen, I'm calling the Paradigm Institute tomorrow, and I'm going to tell them, listen, if Danny Sheehan can't do enough handies to get enough sperm, I know this guy named Solar Marshall, and I bet you he'd be good at it. I'll send him lotion too. How can we help to get the handy mission going? We're going to call it Mission Handy. And we'll be able to avoid an alien invasion just by Danny Sheehan and Solar Marshall, maybe a few other guys. I'm not volunteering, man. By the way, I'm a bit of an amateur gynecologist, right? But I don't. No, I'm not volunteering for the handies. I'm not going to help it. Yes, Wise Monkey says, milk me like a cow. This might be removed again. Yeah, everybody, and that's the thing. In order to be properly effective at giving the aliens enough sperm to stop the alien invasion or the alien hybridization or the alien abductions, they're going to need big loads. So all you guys, you should swear off. Don't bang your wife or your girlfriend, and don't jerk off yourself. Just wait for Danny Sheehan. Danny Sheehan is going to save up the load, get as big a load as you can, right? And then when Danny Sheehan does the handy, he'll get the maximum harvest of your sperm cells. We got to try to keep these aliens happy, all right? Anything to avoid an alien invasion. Look, I'm not okay with the alien invasion. So if Danny Sheehan and maybe a few other people got to get in there and start doing handies to thousands of men, I fully support that, as opposed to an alien invasion, because they like butt probing people, and I'm not a fan of butt stuff. I never have been, never will be, right? I have a feeling Greer and Sheehan stay in the same hotel room. Oh, that's gross. Maybe that's where Danny Sheehan learned to be such an expert on sperm. Is that half-wit with curly locks still bar registered? I'd be fairly concerned. I believe that he is. Right? Daniel Boone says it's probably food for the aliens. Yeah, for all we know, they're not splicing human alien hybrids. Maybe they just like drinking jizz, right? You ever see any of those gross things like where a girl will take a whole cup of jizz, right? I don't know, man. My porn, it gets into some strange stuff. I come across some weird shit, right? I don't know what that's called, but it's gross. Thank you, Stephen, for trying to avoid an alien invasion. Yes, exactly. Can you imagine how many jars of sperm loads my labs have? Yeah. Solar Marshall says that's awful. Stop snorting the Viagra, says Jason Parker. Yeah, that's what we'll do too. We'll get Danny Sheehan, like get him like a case of Viagra, like a big, like a pallet load of Viagra, because some of these dudes might have trouble getting it up. Look, I gotta admit, if I was in line and I knew that I had to get hard and crank one out, and then I saw Danny Sheehan with the lotion, my dick would get soft so fast to be like thinking about your grandma when you have a hard cock. Like, this would not work out well. So he might need. That's what you got to do. You got to give all the guys in line like 3 Viagra. So like a half hour before they get to the front of the line, where Danny Sheehan will be running the milking handy operation, right? We'll get some buckets. We'll just collect buckets of sperm and hope that we can harvest enough sperm to avoid an alien invasion. I think this is a good plan. If you're just joining us, we asked the question tonight, has Danny Sheehan gone full wackadoo? And I would suggest to you that I think he's always been full wackadoo like this, but I haven't paid attention because I immediately discount anybody that works with or for Stephen Greer, like Third Phase of Moon, as being full of shit. Succubus, right? And also, I just want to take a moment to thank everybody. Over the weekend, we debuted 2 free documentaries here on our YouTube channel. They're right down in the video section. So if you go to our main channel, just scroll down the videos, and there are 2 new, well, they're not new, but that's a long story. There are 2 documentaries that we produced here, and you can watch them for free. And we'd like to consider that what we do here, despite all the laughs and joking around, I am quite serious about other subjects. So people should be aware that one of the things we want to do here is be of public benefit, to be educating the public about these strange and unusual stories. There are 2 really good free documentaries right now in our video section. You can watch them completely for free. And I want to thank Sapiens Culture for allowing me to publish that first one. I didn't do that one. I did the second one. But the end result is still the same. We are educating the public about 2 other clowns closely connected with UFO grifter extraordinaire Dr. Stephen Greer, and that is the Third Phase of Moon clowns. And these 2 documentaries really rip apart all their fakery, fraudery, and bull. And we'd like to consider that what we do here is of public benefit and, help educate the public. So there's 2 free documentaries in our video section. And then I was reminded that we produced another free documentary called Is This the Face of Bigfoot? Which is another largely debunked fake hoax of somebody claiming to film real Bigfoot creatures. We're going to start a new section here on our main channel, Free Truthseekers Documentaries. So, one of the things that I want to appeal to you is when you throw a couple bucks in our hat, you're not just supporting the main show here, but you're supporting some of our other efforts, which sometimes includes things like producing a free documentary. I don't see many other YouTube channels going to that lengths. Some guys are just here, get the clicks and views, grab the super chats, and take what you can get. We here have done our best. We want to thank North for a kind and generous $50 PayPal pledge. And let me read that. For those unaware, you can also send a PayPal pledge. Instructions in the description of the video. Hope all is well, Stephen. Great show with Wilcox. I sat through that show yesterday, and I can only say that I believe he is possessed. You need to do a show on possession. I'll email you a few accounts that you can look through. Also, the twin flame shit is the biggest moneymaker going. You need to do a show on twin flame universe and destroy that. On my list of things to do, thank you, North, for your kindness, generosity, and support. And 1 second. We have a kind and generous PayPal pledge of $20 from initial CV. And they say, your show is informative and entertaining. You are up against an incredible amount of bullshit. Keep up the good fight and be well. Thank you, initial CV, for your kindness, generosity, and support. So for those unaware, you can send a PayPal pledge if you don't have your account set up. For those unaware, you can send a super chat with the money button. But we do encourage people, especially if you're sending $20 or $50 or some larger amount, do it through PayPal, where we only pay a small percentage instead of 30. But if you're going to send a PayPal, add a note and give us your chat room user ID. We read every single note that people send us. We thank everybody for their support. We do appreciate it. Wilcock is so crazy, and yes, it was a great show. We may do the other half of his last live stream. Oh, and there you go. There's another thing. If you become a YouTube channel member during a live broadcast, we shout you out and give you a big thank you. So Joe Rothwell just became a YouTube channel member. And we want to thank our PayPal pledgers and new member, Joe Rothwell, for your kindness, generosity, and support and helping us to continue. We're continuing, friends, to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Thank you all for your kindness, generosity, and support. It is much, much appreciated. And when you throw a couple of bucks in our hat, you can feel good knowing that we're trying to do good things for the community, like produce free documentaries that educate people on all the fakery, fraudery, disinformation, misinformation, and just total bullshit that goes on in this whole crazy world. And we have UFO Atheists with a kind and generous $9.99 super sticker. Thank you very much for your kindness, generosity, and support. There's another great person helping us to praise the cash, bitches.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
All right. Yes. So we appreciate you, UFO Atheists. We appreciate all of you kind and generous benefactors. Thank you all for appreciating us and what we do here. So I think we've done our due diligence. And if anybody was curious about what we asked in our title tonight, has Danny Sheehan gone full wackadoo? Somebody said earlier, he hasn't just gone full wackadoo. He's a platinum card member carrying member of the wackadoo squad. I heard somebody say that earlier in the live chat. I can't say that I disagree. So we want to take a moment to thank all of you kind and generous benefactors, you Patreon supporters, and you YouTube channel members. By the way, Patreon is only $1, so you can help us produce these free documentaries by just throwing $1 in our hat. Brother, can you spare $1? I know it's rough out there. That's why I'm begging for money on the internet to continue this journey. We appreciate all of you. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5. You get the same benefits on both, but on YouTube, you get a YouTube channel member badge and a few other goodies that YouTube provides. So thanks for all your kindness, generosity, and support. We want to thank all of our live chatters. We had great attendance tonight. Over 200 and something people tuning in live. I love to see it. Great attendance tonight. We thank all of you, whether you were chatting on our Rumble chat, our Twitch chat, our Facebook live feeds, our Twitter feed, our Instagram live feed, or of course our YouTube feed. Did I get them all? I think so. If I forgot any, I apologize. We thank all of you who are in our live chat and appreciate all of you. So I think we answered the question. Has Danny Sheehan gone full wackadoo? Based on his repeating numerous unproven claims as completely and totally true and factual, I'd say the answer is an overwhelming yes, he has gone full wackadoo. But it is what it is. I'm thankful, by the way, that he's out there saying these things, because the best way to indict a witness is by letting him talk. And I'm no lawyer, Danny Sheehan, but I know that much. The best way to prosecute a witness is to just let him keep talking. So keep talking, Danny Sheehan. Keep repeating bullshit and Greer nonsense and Greer fake talking points from his alleged $500,000 free energy scam. Keep repeating claims of this Cooper Stein, who nobody ever proved was who he said he was. Keep repeating claims of Dan Burrish and David Jacobs, the panty sniffer alien abduction guy, and John Mack, and so many others that all had no evidence. All you get is stories, friends. And the stories really are laced with, built on, and propped up by bullshit. You heard it here first. And by the way, occasionally I get nasty emails from people. And, listen, it's very simple. Show the evidence. Greer has been doing this for decades, never proved any of his claims. But we can prove that he used fake evidence over and over and over again. Grush, 288 days now. Promises of 40 firsthand witnesses, all with evidence. Where are they at? Now we get excuses because they overpromised and underdelivered, and now we get to the land of broken promises and excuses. If you're going to make extraordinary claims on the internet, I maintain my right to call bullshit on them, as we often do. But I would be the first person super excited to see real or verifiable proof or evidence of alien visitation on Earth. People are harsh with me sometimes, and I think to them like, do you know how many hundreds of books on this subject I've read? If I wasn't interested, I wouldn't be digesting all of this nonsense, trying to get to the good stuff. But I'm several decades in and have yet to see clear, verifiable evidence of a great many of these claims being made. And we really need to start demanding evidence. And to that mustache twirling circle jerker, congratulations, you got a lot of views letting a complete and total wackadoo repeat the unproven, unverified, evidence-free claims of other wackadoos. I hope you made a lot of money spreading nonsensical bullshit. Good for you. As for the rest of us, some of us actually require evidence. Imagine that. So that's all we got for you, friends. I'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I hope you'll be back with us. Until next time, friends, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you, especially you, Mr. Sheehan. I know that you were heavily associated with the Jesuits and the Catholic Church. I don't know if you're a praying man, but I am. I'm going to pray that you wake up and start demanding evidence before you before you announce things as facts when there is no facts and evidence. After all, you're a highly educated man and should know better. You should know that you need evidence before you claim things are facts. So I'll pray for you. So that's all I got for you.